Douluo, I'm really not strong. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Bibi Dong's Enlightenment. He even knows how to sacrifice. Looking at the green potion of immortality in the bottle, Bosake's heart trembled, and she felt extremely incredible. This is the highest secret of the High Priest of Poseidon Island. Even if Poseidon wants to inherit it, he should not reveal it to him. Moreover, his strength, seeing the Poseidon's light being released and then dissipating, Bosake was even more horrified. Even Lord Poseidon can't find him in the sea. This brat, you know he doesn't have any good intentions when he comes to Poseidon Island. Cursing fiercely in her heart, Bosake put away the potion of immortality. Turning to look at the Poseidon temple behind him, the look in Bosake's eyes gradually dimmed, and finally he let out a long sigh and returned to the Poseidon temple. How did this guy make such a big noise? On the coast, Xiaobai was eating a car full of watermelon that Suzanne had given her. When she saw the golden light flashing in the sky, she couldn't help but murmur to herself, "Oh, I'd better plant some watermelons. If that guy doesn't come back, I won't have any watermelons." Sighing, Xiaobai collected the watermelon seeds and planned to find a place to plant them. Although supplies are delivered to Poseidon Island every month, there are thousands of people on the island, and fruits in particular are very easy to spoil during the journey. Where there is enough, it is better to be self-sufficient. No one except Bosake knew what happened, and Poseidon Island quickly changed back to its former appearance. In the middle of the blue sea, lurking in the waves, waiting for the destined person to land on the island again. At one end of the sea, two figures slowly appeared. They were Suzanne and Xian who were leaving. "That's the place where I've stayed the longest since I came to this world." Looking in the direction of Poseidon Island, Suzanne raised the corners of his mouth slightly, his face full of memories. After traveling back in time, he only stayed in Xian city for 3 months. If we were to count it strictly, it would probably be less than a month. But in this Poseidon Island, I stayed for 2 full years. Then, am I the daughter-in-law of the Xue family or the daughter-in-law of the Xue family? Xian clasped her hands behind her back, bent forward, and looked at Suzanne with a smile, her bright eyes shining with the light of wisdom. Hearing this, Suzanne was also startled, and then a knowing look appeared on his face. "Talk too much." Suzanne pinched both sides of Xian's face, and pinched her small mouth into the shape of the word one. Suzanne pretended to be angry. "I'm not talking too much." Feeling a little hurt, Xian pushed Suzanne's arm away. The stars in her eyes solidified, full of stubbornness. PFFD. Seeing Xian like this, Suzanne understood, after thinking about it for a moment, and laughed immediately. "I didn't mean that. Don't think too much about it." Xian blushed and turned her head to the side in panic. "Yes. No, the child's name will be your last name from now on, right?" Suzanne teased with a smile. "Sigh, I won't tell you." Hearing this, Xian immediately ran away, got on the spaceship, and flew away, leaving Suzanne where he was. Suzanne, sure enough, I have seen through it a long time ago. In the 2 years since Suzanne left, Douluo continent has developed rapidly and has already fully entered the technological era. Even the bank was completed under Suzanne's remote guidance. Following the trend of the times, banknotes replaced all gold coins and became the mainstream currency. Gold coins are completely reduced to collectibles. To put it bluntly, most of the gold coins at this moment have been collected by Xiao City. The total amount of gold coins in the entire continent was, as Suzanne thought, only over 3 billion. After all, the land area of Douluo continent is too small. Judging from the second part of Douluo, the depth of a country is about 2,500 kilometers. And the total land area is not even as large as China. When gold coins have their expiration date and desires are endless, this is also an extremely helpless thing. After an hour in the spaceship, Suzanne and Xian arrived at Wuhan City. "Stop. Who dares to break into Wuhan City without permission?" Seeing The two people getting off the spaceship, the Soul Master guarding the city immediately stopped them. Although they looked familiar to Suzanne and Xian, they couldn't remember where they had seen them before. This is a papal decree. Take me to see the Pope. Xian took out the token that Bibi Dong had given him. When they saw the token, all the Soul Masters immediately saluted. Sir, I will take you there right now. The little guy immediately ran down and took Suzanne and the others to the Pope's palace. However, when he came to the Pope's palace square, he asked Suzanne and the others to go ahead on their own while he retreated, fearing that he would desecrate the Pope's palace. With the papal decree, Suzanne and the two entered the papal palace unimpeded. Senior sister, you're welcome and safe. Looking at Bibi Dong, who was as young and beautiful as a 20-year-old girl in front of her, Suzanne smiled and said hello. Seeing Suzanne and the others coming back, Bibi Dong looked a little excited, but he noticed Suzanne's title. Okay, you all go down. Bibi Dong immediately understood what it meant and waved to the two elders, asking them to leave. However, when the two left, they looked deeply at Suzanne, obviously recognizing Suzanne's identity. You've been away for 2 whole years without even saying hello to me. Do you still have me as your senior sister in your heart? Bibi Dong pretended to be angry. This is not what the teacher told me. I have been practicing in the past 2 years. This blame could not be taken back even to death. So Suzanne directly pushed the blame onto the Supreme Being. Anyway, he had always been the one to take the blame, and this was no exception. Ignoring Suzanne, Bibi Dong looked at Xian, her intelligent eyes seeming to have seen through everything. She knows that her daughter has grown up. I hope your choice is right. Once you make your choice, never let it go. Although she hated her fate in her heart, Bibi Dong forced a smile on her face and reminded her in a deep tone. Her face was full of bitterness and vicissitudes of life, and she seemed to have thousands of emotions that she wanted to vent, but when the word came to her lips, she still swallowed them. Don't involve the child in adult matters. She is innocent. This is what she learned from countless family tragedies on her mobile phone. Seeing Bibi Dong being like this, Xian also had mixed feelings, and she could understand Bibi Dong's mood at the moment. After all, it was his father who did something wrong, and it was still the woman in front of him who suffered. Mother-in-law, Xue and I plan to get married when we come back this time, so I came here to hear your opinions. There was no one around, so Suzanne returned to his original friendly name, and while speaking, his attitude became more and more respectful. Marry. Hearing this, Bibi Dong's pupils shrank suddenly. She didn't expect it to happen so suddenly, but after thinking about it, she felt it was reasonable. After all, Xian was now this guy's woman. Whether you're getting married or not, it's better to have a status as soon as possible to prevent him from messing around with women. Squeezing out a smile, Bibi Dong said seriously, then turned her head slightly to the side so that no one could see her expression at the moment. You guys go. I'm a little tired. Bibi Dong said in a hoarse voice. Chapter 252. Suzanne is guilty of showing off. Let's go. Seeing Xian dazed, Suzanne held her shoulders and led her out of the Wuhan Palace. Bibi Dong's ability to achieve this level is already her best effort. If she really wants to stay here, it will only make her feel the pain in her heart. Sigh. It looks like I really need to travel through time to get rid of this problem for my mother-in-law. Shaking his head, Suzanne led Xian towards the mountain. Passing by the Elders Hall, the two of them did not go in, but went directly to the Douluo Hall. The Elder Hall is where living titled Douluo stay, and the Douluo Hall is where dead titled Douluo stay. Today's strength versus past honors. Perhaps this way, it feels easier to understand. There is no one guarding Douluo Hall, and no one dares to come here. Even the elders of Wuhan Hall must be cautious. When you walk into Douluo Hall, the first thing you see is a sculpture of an angel and god. It is in the center of the empty hall. The walls surrounding the angel god sculpture are full of the lives of titled Douluo, and there are even portraits of them. After a long time, it is still brand new, and there does not seem to be any trace of age and decay. Suzanne didn't pay attention to this. The two of them stared blankly at the white-haired old man in front of them. Xian, who was feeling sad, also had a gentle smile on her face. "Grandpa, I'm back." Xian Rongsu opened her red lips slightly and murmured a reminder. Her voice was filled with excitement. She was trembling uncontrollably, and her eyes were a little red point. Although Bibi Dong is her mother, Xian Douluo is definitely the person she is closest to in terms of family relationships. Boom. Suddenly, golden soul power surged out from Xian Douluo and charged towards the two of them. The long wind blew Xian Douluo's white robes, and his white hair made him look particularly fairy-like. Xian Rongsu was blown aside, and the huge soul power pressure fell directly on Suzanne. With Ling Linky around, Suzanne could clearly sense that this soul power didn't have much killing intent. It seemed that Xian Douluo was testing him. If you want to test it, then just test it. Seeing this, Suzanne directly released his martial soul. 6 soul rings rhymed on his body, and surging soul power surged out of his body, carrying this soul power down. 2 yellow, 1 purple and 3 red. 3 red soul rings shine in the Douluo hall, and the blood red light looks very scary. Aha. Xian Douluo was also shocked by the red light. He turned his head and looked at Suzanne in disbelief. Seeing the 3 red soul rings on Suzanne's body, Xian Douluo was also dumbfounded. His eyes almost popped out of his head, and it felt like 1,000 weeds were rushing through his heart point. Originally, he wanted to see Suzanne's potential. If he was too useless, even if he was that person's disciple, he wouldn't be able to let him abduct his granddaughter. This test doesn't matter. The other party just gave him a wave of bombs. Soul Emperor cultivation level. 3 red soul rings. You are going to heaven, Grandpa. This is your future grandson-in-law, and also Zuo's husband. Zuo will never marry, unless he is him in this life. Knowing that Xian Douluo would not let go easily, Xian Rongsu spoke quickly, and glanced at Suzanne shyly as she spoke, her eyes shining brightly, full of deep affection. Hearing this, Xian Douluo turned his eyes, and saw Xian Rongsu's stubborn and affectionate look. It seemed that the two had a substantial relationship, and Yao Ayazi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If he killed Suzanne now, I'm afraid Xian Rongsu would also be disheartened and die together. Have you broken through to the Soul Saint realm? As if he sensed something was wrong, Xian Douluo suddenly looked at Xian Rongsu, his eyes gleaming, as if the sun was coming. Biting her lip and nodding, Xian Rongsu immediately released her soul ring. 3 purple, 2 black and 2 red, which looked very even. Xian Douluo. Dream. Old man, I must be dreaming, and haven't woken up yet, right? That must be it. Fortunately, he had experienced too much, and was only slightly dazed. Xian Douluo came back to his senses, and gritted his teeth and asked, where did you get these soul rings? The voice was a bit scary. If he hadn't realized that the soul power emitted by Xian Rongsu had the same origin as his own, Xian Douluo would have even thought that Xian Rongsu was someone else pretending to be him. As a soul saint, if you want to obtain 200,000 year soul rings, it is impossible to obtain 200,000 year soul rings unless you sacrifice a soul beast point, and it is even more impossible for the first and second soul rings to become 1,000 year soul rings unless the God test you took part in. As if he thought of something, Xian Douluo screamed. Only through the assessment by the gods can the soul ring increase in age. Just like at this moment, his first to 4th soul rings are 10,000 years old. It is because he accepted the 8 angel god tests. Passing the 8th test was directly rewarded with 10,000 years. My husband and I went to Poseidon Island and participated in Poseidon's assessment. Xian Rongsu replied truthfully, while Suzanne had already put his hands behind his back, and a dark golden trident pattern appeared on his forehead. That's right, his pattern was not erased, but suppressed by him using Ling Linky. Wouldn't it be a shame if such pretentious tactics were wiped out like this? As for Xian Rongsu, since Ling Linky was not in her body, Suzanne directly wiped it out to prevent the old guy from Poseidon from retaliating. You went to Poseidon Island. Hearing this, Xian Douluo was even more frightened. When he saw that Xian Rongsu was not injured, he breathed a sigh of relief. Decades ago, the idiots near Hanhei City actually attacked Poseidon Island in order to spread the belief in Wuhan Temple. They almost vomited blood. Damn it. Even he can't defeat Bosegsi in the sea. How dare you come to her doorstep? Seemingly sensing that someone was showing off, Douluo immediately turned his head and looked over, his eyes fixed on the mark on Suzanne's forehead. This is Douluo's pupils shrank suddenly, and he felt a divine energy from above. It's just the Poseidon's 9th test. I just passed the 7th test. It doesn't count. Hearing this, Suzanne waved his hands quickly, with a humble look, and the word "come on, praise me" were written on his face. Douluo, Poseidon 9 tests, passed the 7th exam. Nothing yet? Damn it, believe it or not, I will chop you up right now. They didn't make things difficult for you, and asked you to take part in the assessment? Douluo looked at Rinxu and asked, ignoring the pretentious Suzanne, It was indeed a bit difficult at first, but after seeing that my husband is the 9th test of Poseidon, and I'm the 8th test of Poseidon, so, before Rinxu could finish her words, she was directly interrupted by Douluo. His old eyes were as wide as those of a scalper and he exclaimed, wait a minute, you said you are Poseidon Bakao? It's a little worse than my husband, but my husband said that Poseidon will not allow me to inherit the throne, so it's the 8th test? Rinxu replied. Douluo, can the word husband be removed? My heart aches. Chapter 253. Douluo is heartbroken. Poseidon, angel god, one is the ocean and the other is the sky. They are more like opposing gods. In addition, the audiences for belief are different. Poseidon is in the sea, while angel god occupies the mainland point. No matter how you look at it, Poseidon and angel god do not have a good relationship, and naturally they will not pass the divine throne to Poseidon's descendants. However, Douluo got an extremely important piece of information from it. Even though the focus of the divine test is different, Rinxu's talent is definitely in the 8th test. Even as the pig said, the 9 tests are still unknown. At this moment, Rinxu's strength has leapt forward, possessing 200,000 year soul rings. If you can't achieve the 9 angel god exams even with this, then I'm afraid no future generations will be able to do so. With this thought, Douluo's mind suddenly became active. If Rinxu could inherit the position of angel, then Wuhan Palace would be able to truly unify the continent. But this pig's identity is the prince of the Xian Empire. Looking at Suzanne, Douluo's eyes flashed with murderous intent. The latter's talent is really a bit evil, and he is very likely to be the biggest obstacle to Wuhandians' unification of the continent in the future. What if I get rid of him now? After thinking about it, Douluo gave up. Not to mention that the other party was undergoing a divine test. Poseidon could not afford to offend him. Just for Rinxu, if this pig dies, the girl might do something stupid. Alas, this is the only descendant of the angel clan. He really can't afford to gamble. Based on Douluo's reaction, Suzanne was 100% sure that the old man just wanted to kill him. You damn old man, if it weren't for the fact that you are Xue's grandfather, believe it or not, I would let you go to Qinghe Garden to pick up guests. Okay, you don't have to protect him. Seeing Rinxu standing sideways in front of Suzanne, Douluo couldn't help but feel a little annoyed and waved his hands. I just had a thought, and this girl reacted like this. If I really do it, then I won't be able to fight to the death. Alas, as expected, the cabbage that was taken over by the pig must be sold at a low price. Tell me, how do you plan to deal with the affairs of your royal family and Wuhan Palace? On one side is Douluo, on the other side is the Xian Empire. Think about it yourself. Douluo was serious. He had to ask this question, and he had to know it. Unifying the continent is a long-cherished wish of the Wuhan Palace and the Angel clan, but now they are related to the royal family. If Xue and I get married, the relationship between Wuhan Palace and Xiandao Empire will be that of in-laws. The hostility in the past has naturally been gradually restrained, and we are seeking harmonious coexistence. Hearing Suzanne twisting around here, Douluo narrowed his eyes and shouted coldly, "Get straight to the point." Okay. Seeing Douluo so anxious, Suzanne shook his head helplessly and directly said what he was thinking. Xue and I will definitely have a child in the future. He can inherit the angel clan of Wuhan Palace. If Xue gets tired of being the Pope, you can let him become the Pope, which can be regarded as inheriting the mother's business. Hearing Suzanne's words, Qian Daoliu's face turned purple and his fists were clenched together, wanting to slap the guy in front of him to death. MMP, inherit the angel family. Those who didn't know better thought you were good to Wuhan Palace, but in the end you really wanted to steal Wuhan Palace. When the time comes, will the angel clan have the final say in the spirit hall, or will you, the pig, have the final say? Depend on, do you want me to die? In peace, old man, grandpa, what is your look like? Seeing Qian Daoliu staring at him, Suzanne stared back and said with an angry expression, Xue is the only bloodline of the angel clan. Shouldn't our children inherit the spirit hall? Is it possible that you would rather hand over the Wuhan Palace to an outsider than give it to your own great-grandson? After finishing speaking, Suzanne hugged Qian Rinxu's waist and felt that all her hard work had been wasted. She turned to Qian Rinxu with a slumped face and muttered, it's not that I don't want your angel lineage to continue. Grandpa doesn't need this, and there's nothing I can do about it. In the blink of an eye, Suzanne's face turned from gloomy to clear, and Suzanne touched Qian Rinxu's belly with a smile. But it doesn't matter. I have the throne anyway. I can just let my son inherit the throne when the time comes. Having Xiaoyao City left for him will not be worse than being the emperor. Don't make trouble. Qian Rinxu patted Suzanne's arm angrily. Unexpected by his actions, he thought she had a baby. Looking at Qian Rinxu's belly, Qian Daoliu's mouth trembled suddenly, suppressing the raging anger in his heart and not letting it explode. MMP, you really want to take over the spirit hall without any bloodshed? But thinking about what Suzanne said, Qian Daoliu was extremely helpless. Qian Rinxu is the only one in the angel clan now, and her child will definitely be the leader of Wuhan Palace in the future. Unless he didn't want the angel clan to continue to exist and would rather hand over the Wuhan Palace to outsiders than to his own family. If there is anyone who is in a worse mood than Bibi Dong at this moment, it must be Qian Daoliu. Not only was the granddaughter abducted, but even the power was about to be abducted. What the hell is going on? It's okay if the angel family is gone. When the time comes, I will pass the position of Pope to others, and let your dirty angel family be drowned in the dust of history. Hahaha. Before Qian Daoliu could speak, a shrill, twisted and angry voice rang out, his words full of hatred and the pleasure of revenge. Bibi Dong. Hearing this, Qian Daoliu was almost angry to death. He clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes turned a little scarlet. The angel clan must not be destroyed in his hands. Even though he felt unhappy inside, it was better for Wuhan Palace to be left to his great-grandson than to be left to others in vain. In the future, your children need someone named Qian. This is my only condition. Qian Daoliu gritted his teeth and squeezed out these words from between his teeth. His eyes were staring at Suzanne, which meant that the fish was dead and the net was broken. I can't promise you this. Hearing this, Suzanne shook his head helplessly. As a good father, how could he make fun of his son and their future? Although it is just a matter of surname, what his surname is determines his future. Even if he is a father, he has no right to interfere with this future. Qian Daoliu, say it again. Believe it or not, I will show you how violent I am. It's up to them to choose what the future holds. I can give him this option, but it's not my choice for him. After all, I have serious doubts about the angel family's parenting skills. Suzanne's expression was meticulous, but then his expression fell. Hi wife, please be gentle. I didn't say anything to you. Suzanne clutched her jade hand tightly at her waist and begged for mercy and pain. If you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being rude to you. Staring at Suzanne fiercely, Qian Rinxu Feng's eyes were filled with cold light. She is also from the angel family. Is it possible that she doesn't know how to teach children? Chapter 254. Bibi Dong vs Qian Daoliu. Gilu. Pulling Qian Rinxu to the side and standing silently, Suzanne and the others did not dare to interfere and quietly watched the contest between the elders. In the Douluo hall, Qian Daoliu and Bibi Dong stood opposite each other. Neither of them had a trace of soul power leaked out, but the chilling and cold aura that permeated the two of them filled the entire hall. Boom. It was overwhelming, as if the two of them would really start fighting in the next moment. Suzanne would never have imagined that when he and Qian Daoliu were in a stalemate, it would be Bibi Dong who came out. to support the two of them. Although Bibi Dong was deliberately seeking revenge, there was also subconscious concern from her mother. A woman, especially after something like that, could still do this. Suzanne had to admire her. No wonder she was able to block Tang San's sword for Qian Ringsu in the end, and fell because of Qian Ringsu. This is maternal love. Although we hate it, we love it deeply. Oh. It seems that it is inevitable that I will travel through time. Shaking his head, Suzanne already had some concerns in his heart. Some things are not, whether you want to or not, but what you have to do. However, how can I change all this? In order to prevent Bibi Dong from being harmed, Qian Ringsu could also be born, and it would not affect the direction of history, so as not to destroy herself. Hissy has a headache. Every time he gives me this kind of brain burning problem, his brain with an IQ of 180 will shut down sooner or later. It's okay, I'm here. There was some pain in her arm. Suzanne regained consciousness and patted Qian Ringsu's hand that was holding her tightly, comforting her. Even if Qian Douluo and Bibi Dong fought, there would be no problem. At best, he would join in and see if he could help her punch Qian Douluo a few times on the field. Qian Douluo and Bibi Dong just stared at each other. Neither of them spoke or made a move. The exchange of looks between the two of them was like lightning. Sparks arose. Although Bibi Dong can't defeat Qian Douluo now, she won't be afraid of anything. She was unable to resist more than 10 years ago, but now she wants to try. Sensing the meaning in Bibi Dong's eyes, Qian Douluo sighed, then waved to Suzanne and Qian Ringsu. You go. Remember to come back and see me, this old man, in the future. This place belongs to you after all. I'll look after it for you for the time being. After finishing speaking, Qian Douluo disappeared directly, as if he didn't want to stay here for one more second. When the time comes, senior sister, I will be there. Bibi Dong looked at the two of them, then left after saying a few words. In the huge Douluo hall, Suzanne and Qian Ringsu were the only ones left here, looking a little lonely. Suzanne, masters compete with each other. It's really a matter of clicks. Ahem. Then, where are we going now? Holding Qian Ringsu's palm, Suzanne asked in confusion. In this situation, he definitely can't really just pat his ass and leave, otherwise he would be too inhuman. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War that attacking the city is the bottom priority and attacking the heart is the top priority. If Bibi Dong and Qian Douluo are not completely settled, they will not be happy in the future. Although now is considered the future, but who knows if anything will be involved in the future. Alas, they are not fuel efficient light bulbs. Sure enough, it is difficult for the wife to think, well, come with me. Even though both of them had no objections, Qian Ringsu couldn't feel happy at all. She only felt a tightness in her chest, which was extremely heavy. Pulling Suzanne, Qian Ringsu left the right door of Douluo Hall and came to the side of the mountain. There is also a palace here, which is deep and quiet. Although it looks clean and tidy, the dull feeling in the air suggests that it must be uninhabited. This is where I used to live. Let's stay here for a few days. With that said, Qian Ringsu pushed open the palace door. Through the door, Suzanne could see the decoration inside, which looked cute and warm with a feminine pink tone. After the restrictions in the palace were dispersed, Qian Ringsu's golden soul power was immediately released, sweeping into every corner, and the skylights opened on all sides. In the blink of an eye, the seemingly dim palace became brighter, and the oil lamps on all sides also lit up, completely illuminating the palace. So, you like pink things? Following Qian Ringsu into the bedroom, Suzanne couldn't help but laugh when looking at the scene in front of her in the bedroom. The soft pillows and soft beds are all decorated in pink, and the goose yellow curtains are romantic and cute. There is also a stuffed toy on the bed, which looks like a bear from a distance. Sure enough, all girls have girlish hearts, and even Qian Ringsu is no exception. Hearing this, Qian Ringsu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This was her boudoir, so she naturally followed her favorite style. If you are tired, just rest for a while. I will be back soon. Seemingly thinking of something, Qian Ringsu said something to Suzanne and left in a hurry. Without following her to disturb her, Suzanne wandered around the room, looking at the layout and furnishings in the room, as well as various supplies, and basically knew Qian Ringsu's preferences. No wonder she was taken down by me so easily. It turns out that she is still so pure at heart. After closing the diary, Suzanne put it back to its original position. Her body suddenly leaned back, and Suzanne fell down on the soft and warm big bed. My wife's bed should be softer. In the evening, Suzanne and the three of them got together again. Originally, Suzanne planned to have a meal with the four of them at the same table to ease the relationship, but Douluo was too aloof and sent him away with just "I'm full. Alas, I really don't know how to cherish it." As for Bibi Dong, when she heard that Douluo could not come, she smiled and agreed, as if she was deliberately going against someone. These dishes are also made by Xue. Smelling the aroma of the food, Bibi Dong's eyes lit up, and she looked at Xue in surprise. "My son-in-law did it myself. How can I let my daughter-in-law do it when I come to my mother's house?" Suzanne said sternly. Well, what he originally prepared was a luxurious table. Xue couldn't handle these complicated dishes, so he had to do it himself. Then, "Let me try your craft, Bibi." Dong couldn't help but laugh as she thought of something. No wonder the teacher chose him as his disciple. She seemed to understand. After roving his eyes, Bibi Dong focused on the fish meat, picked up a small piece, and put it into his mouth. Suddenly, the smile on Bibi Dong's face solidified. "What's wrong? Isn't it delicious?" Seeing the shocked look on his mother-in-law Bibi Dong's face, Suzanne couldn't help but ask. He was quite confident about his cooking skills. "It's nothing. I just thought of something. It tastes pretty good and is very nostalgic." Awakened by Suzanne's voice, Bibi Dong shook her head and took a deep look at the former. The face looked a little strange and her muscles couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 255. Novels are very harmful. In front of the palace, a figure was leaning casually on the steps, quietly looking at the starry night sky in front of him. "Xiao Mengzi, how do you feel after living for so long?" Suzanne asked curiously. Xiao Mengzi is naturally the honorific name given by Suzanne to his pet Xian Mengai's silkworm. Don't look at it. 99.999% of those who have been given this name throughout the ages are ruthless people who have exterminated their children and grandchildren, but this is Suzanne's pet name for those close to him. Ordinary people will never get this kind of treatment. On the shoulder, Xian Mengbin can look sleepy, as if he always wanted to sleep and didn't have much energy. The name Xiao Mengzi was weird. He had struggled before, but in the end he failed. "I don't feel anything. I slept for too long. I'll tell you one day, when Brother Meng comes to the Soul Beast world with the honor of a million-year-old Soul Beast." Xian Mengbing Silkworm was in high spirits, especially when she thought that her insect life would be complete one day. She was even more excited. Sure enough, the way he opened his life before was wrong. He thought that being good at fighting was of no use. He was 990,000 years old, and he was not weak at all. Therefore, it is one thing to be lucky, but more importantly, one must have a strong backer. Wow, this guy is not only powerful, but he also provides food and drink. Why has Brother Meng never encountered such a life before? Alas, you have lived for so many years, but your life has been in vain. Suzanne sighed helplessly. He was really stupid to ask such a question to Xian Mengbingsi. "Well, it is indeed a waste of life." Xian Mengbing also nodded with feeling, but he seemed to be generous and showed no shame at all. Suzanne, why are you here alone? Where is Xue at? At this moment, a gentle and slightly cold voice suddenly sounded. Xian Mengbingsi was startled and hurriedly hid in Suzanne's pocket. Grandpa asked her to go because he had something to do with her. Suzanne turned to look at Bibi Dong and replied helplessly. Originally, he wanted to go together, but Douluo was unreasonable and said that it was related to the secrets of the angel family, so he refused to let him go. Hearing this, Bibi Dong looked at Douluo Hall, seeming to know what was going on, and didn't care, sitting next to Suzanne, as if there was no one around. The noble and cool Pope is actually sitting on the steps. Moreover, it is still the same man. If other people saw this scene, it would definitely cause huge criticism. "I came here to ask, teacher, where has he gone?" Bibi Dong's voice sounded like a clear spring as he looked at Suzanne blankly. "His old man has gone to other worlds, and I'm afraid he won't be back for a while." Suzanne's calm eyes suddenly became stunned. Suzanne took a deep look at Bibi Dong and replied point off after replying casually. Bibi Dong spoke again. The food you cook is quite delicious. Did you learn it from someone in the palace? If you have time, you can ask him to come over and teach me. Of course not. How can they cook such a dish? Seeing Bibi Dong staring blankly at her with narrowed eyes, Suzanne felt a little bit hairy, not knowing where he had offended her again. However, this is him, the cook. Let him teach Bibi Dong how to cook. With her IQ, she would have guessed it was me in just a few days, even if she was beaten to death. Ahem. That cook is from the West. I heard that there is a continent in the West. He has gone back. If my mother-in-law is willing, I can ask Xue to teach you some daily dishes. Suzanne explained without blushing or out of breath that it was not good to lie, but sometimes lying is the fastest way to solve a problem. From the West, Bibi Dong suddenly sneered, and an inexplicable sense of oppression surged towards Suzanne. But the news I got is that the chefs in your house are all from the palace, and there has never been any change, and you only started cooking when Xue came to your house. I wonder if you have anything to say. Bibi Dong stood up slowly, looking down from a high position with a torturous gaze as cold as ice, piercing Suzanne's heart. Point boom. The words were spoken, splitting mountains and rocks, deafening. Are you investigating me specifically? Suzanne also suddenly stood up. His originally casual gaze suddenly became fierce. He glared like a hawk and shouted angrily. Suddenly, Suzanne wanted to curse in his heart. As a time traveler, it was really difficult for him. MMP. Others who have traveled through time will not arouse suspicion if they behave abnormally. Point especially when traveling to ancient times. The disciples and guidance of immortals have passed away. Why do I have so many troubles? Xian Rinks, who lives with her day and night and lives in the house. She knows all kinds of secrets about him. In addition, she has mentioned other worlds, so she has her own guesses, which is normal. But Bibi Dong was so suspicious of what the hell was going on. If you said you learned cooking from a teacher, I would definitely not doubt it, but you insist on saying that you learned it from someone else. Did you know that the teacher once said that his cooking skills are unique and there will be no other person in the mainland who can do it? Seeing Suzanne glaring at her angrily, Bibi Dong couldn't help but smile lightly. Then she bit her silver teeth and said angrily with equally scary cold eyes. While speaking, he was also observing Suzanne's expression. Seeing his eyes flickering, Bibi Dong had a faint judgment in his heart. Point Suzanne, wouldn't it be even more idiotic for me to say that I learned my cooking skills from my teacher, an extremely powerful man teaching his disciples how to cook? And looking at Bibi Dong, Suzanne had a look of despair on his face. He really wanted to hit himself unconscious with a brick. Point MMP. Why are you worrying so blindly? What kind of banquet will be held to ease the conflict? Now, Bibi Dong actually noticed something fishy. No wonder she reacted in shock when she took her first bite. What was even more unacceptable to him was that he had left so many flaws after traveling through the past. Although my cooking skills are indeed unique, unparalleled, and shocking. 8 million words omitted, but snapped. Slap, would you die if you were a little more modest? Senior sister, what on earth do you want to say? Why am I getting more and more confused the more I listen to it? After scratching his head, Suzanne's shocked expression suddenly turned into confusion, and he asked without knowing why. He seeing that Suzanne was still pretending to be with her, Bibi Dong's sneer became even stronger. From now on, should I call you son-in-law or teacher? Bibi Dong gritted her teeth. Point Suzanne, senior sister, are you mistaken? How can I be a teacher? He is already a year old, and I'm only a teenager. Suzanne was even more confused, and her acting skills were completely explosive. I have seen The Art of Change in novels and TV series. Do you think teachers can do it or not? Looking at the sky, Bibi Dong asked in a heart-to-heart manner, but every word she said stabbed Suzanne in the heart. Point Suzanne, woohoo, when I get back later, I will ban the novel. Novels are really harmful. Chapter 256. One wave just subsided, and another wave started again. Senior sister, the novels are all written by the author blindly. They cannot be taken as true. Shaking his head secretly in sadness, Suzanne began to persuade him earnestly. All in all, I can't admit it even to death. If this is accepted, I call my apprentice mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law calls me teacher. Should Xue call me husband, or master? Hiss. When Suzanne thought of this, goosebumps almost appeared all over his body. If this is confirmed, then he will become the kind of person who eats young grass. Seeing that Bibi Dong still didn't believe it, Suzanne spoke again. If I were really a teacher, how could I be a prince in the Xian Empire? You know the teacher's strength well. Even Sword Douluo is no match for him. Look at me, I'm just a Soul Emperor. How can I be a teacher? There was a slight pause in his tone. Knowing that it was impossible not to use a big move, Suzanne started to hurt himself again. Teacher is a scholar of heaven, and I'm not even 1/10,000th as good as me. It is already a great blessing to be able to reach 1/10th of the teacher's level in this life. Senior sister, you must not compare me with the teacher. Alas, senior sister, I think you are lovesick. I think you miss the teacher too much. Otherwise, why don't I ask for you? When will the teacher come back? Xian looked at Bibi Dong sincerely, then took out her cell phone and planned to send a message to the Supreme Being. Seeing Suzanne like this, Bibi Dong also frowned. Could it be that I really thought wrong? Staring at Suzanne intently, Bibi Dong always felt that the eyes looking at Suzanne were very much like those of a Supreme Being. Especially the feeling of closeness that spontaneously arose in her heart made her feel like she was facing the Supreme Being. Then, tell me, what's going on with the food? The teacher told me personally that he is the only one who can make that smell. Bibi Dong stared at Suzanne meticulously and pressed the question doubtfully. Suzanne, next time I cook, I will be an idiot. Oh, senior sister, actually this dish was taught to me by the teacher. The teacher has always been tricky. It's not like you don't know that. As an expert, he taught his disciples cooking skills. This fact is really not easy to publicize. That's why I lied. I didn't expect that you, senior sister, would misunderstand. It really shouldn't have happened. With a face full of apologies, Suzanne couldn't think of any other excuse at the moment. He was just treating a dead horse as a living doctor, whether she believes it or not. He has no move now anyway. Really? The voice became solid, but Bibi Dong still didn't seem to believe it, staring at Suzanne with a gaze as sharp as a sword. If you still don't believe me, senior sister, when the teacher comes back, I will follow him personally. Then it will be clear to you. With a flash of light in his eyes, Suzanne replied sincerely. Originally, he did not want to use this suicide method, but at least it won't be a problem to delay this method for a few years. When the time comes, you can just create a clone yourself. It seems like I'm overthinking it. Hearing what Suzanne said, Bibi Dong couldn't help but believe it and sighed apologetically. It's normal for senior sister to miss the teacher. The teacher hasn't contacted me recently. I'm also very concerned about the teacher. I don't know how he is doing. Alas, Suzanne sighed and shook his head, not paying attention to Bibi Dong's suspicion. The other party is his senior sister, and also his mother-in-law. It doesn't matter if he suffers this injustice. After chatting with Bibi Dong for a while, the latter left absent-mindedly, and Suzanne couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. It was so dangerous, I almost exposed myself. Boom. Not long after Bibi Dong left, a fierce golden light burst out from the Douluo palace. The golden light was as pure as a golden pillar. Immediately, a golden figure rose up. That was a woman, pure and flawless. Any words in the world used to describe her would feel like a smear against her. She was just her, independent from the world, otherworldly, and so beautiful that it astonished time, as if the whole world could not tolerate her. The golden light exploded, and not only Suzanne saw it, but also Bibi Dong and everyone in Wuhan City saw it. Feeling the energy of the Rakshasa god in her body stirring, a strong murderous intention surged into Bibi Dong's heart, but in the end it was suppressed by her reason. The Rakshasa god is opposed to the angel god, but she is not against her. That is her daughter, and she should be happy for him. Didn't this old guy Xian Douluo even say a word to me? Seeing Xian Ringsu starting the 9 angel god exams, Suzanne gritted his teeth viciously. Knowing that they are getting married, they still deliberately do this. This is definitely delaying time. Damn it, if I don't give you a good beating tonight, I won't be able to get rid of my anger. After thinking about it, Suzanne directly spread his wings and flew into the Douluo palace. At this time, the golden light began to dissipate and was all included in the Douluo palace. Okay. Seeing the seraph mark on Xian Rinxu's forehead, Xian Daoliu was overjoyed. His eyes were deeply red and there were faint tears flowing out. After waiting for so many years, Xian Rinxu did not disappoint him and could really inherit the throne of Angel. Well, you ghost. As soon as he entered the Douluo hall, Suzanne heard the cheers and immediately became furious and turned on the scolding mode. Suddenly, the smile on Xian Daoliu's face froze and he turned to look at the angry Suzanne. We are planning to hold a wedding when we come back this time. Now that you want her to inherit the throne of Angel, what will happen to the two of us? Old man, if you have an opinion, if you have the ability to raise it in person, don't use this method. I will take care of you in a one-on-one fight or in a group fight. Xian gritted his teeth and glared at Xian Daoliu. His dark face looked like a devil. He grinded his teeth and sucked blood, wishing to bite off a few pieces of meat from his body. As a man, one of the two saddest things is you have taken off your pants and you tell me you are a man, and the other thing is getting married. The woman wants to make some trouble to decide whether the marriage will be concluded or not. Damn it. I'm giving you face. Seeing that Suzanne dared to yell at him, Xian Daoliu's mouth twitched sharply and his clenched fists were green and white. If it weren't for the fact that you are the disciple of the Supreme Master, I would have slapped you to death. Taking a deep breath, Xian Daoliu suppressed the anger in his heart and shouted, I'm doing this for your own sake. Don't be ignorant of good and evil, Xian. For our sake? I thank you. Do you believe it or not? Husband, you misunderstood. Just when Suzanne was about to get angry, Xian Rinxu fell from the sky and caught him. Grandpa's intention is for me to inherit the throne of Angel God first. In the future, our children will have the blood of Angel Gods as soon as they are born. Seeing Suzanne staring at her with a dark face, Xian Rinxu was a little panicked and quickly explained. So, just because of the blood of the Angel God, you agree? It's okay not to say it. As soon as Xian Rinxu said these words, Suzanne almost spit out a mouthful of old blood and replied through gritted teeth, I'm also thinking about future generations. Seeing Suzanne like this, Xian Rinxu seemed to realize that she had rashly agreed and should ask for his opinion. She felt guilty and did not dare to look Suzanne in the eye. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257. Our family is poor, and we sleep in the same room. A mere bloodline of Angel God, delaying their wedding. If Xian Rinxu could ask him, she wouldn't do such a stupid thing. The bloodline of the Angel God, a first level god, that's nothing. Why didn't he integrate the Dragon God bloodline he redeemed into his body? Isn't it just for the sake of future generations? So this marriage, alas. In the bedroom, Suzanne was lying on Xian Rinxu's bed, sleeping under the quilt. The whole room was filled with an aura of resentment, and it was so cold that she felt a little panicked. Click with a slight sound. The bedroom door was pushed open. Sensing the strange atmosphere in the room, Xian Rinxu walked in quietly, her heart hanging with fear. You are asleep. The index finger poked Suzanne's shoulder, and Xian Rinxu's soft voice came out of her throat, with a coquettish flavor, as if she was coquettishly speaking. Hearing this, Suzanne turned to the other side, and even the quilt on the bed was brought over by him. Well, seeing that Suzanne ignored her so much, Xian Rinxu felt a little panicked. After thinking for a moment, she also lay down, pulled Suzanne's quilt over, blushed, and hugged Suzanne from behind. You're still angry with me. No matter what happens in the future, I'll listen to you, okay? With her head slightly touching the side of Suzanne's head, Xian Rinxu exhaled like a blue breath and promised. Both of them were covered with quilts. The heat wave hit, and Suzanne couldn't avoid it. He was so numb that he had to shrink his head slightly. Hunching her body, Suzanne kept her head away from Xian Rinxu, lest she be poisoned by her and become unable to extricate herself. I'm not thinking about the future. Even if I inherit the throne of Angel now, I can still prepare for the wedding. I have 1 year to complete the first exam. We can spare a month. After all, I have already strengthened my body while on Poseidon Island. Xian Rinxu explained in a gentle voice, and she felt relieved when she saw that Suzanne finally reacted. What's the first test? Suzanne lifted the quilt slightly, looked over sideways, and asked. Xian Rinxu smiled knowingly when she saw Suzanne's chin slightly protruding upwards, her lips pouting, her expression blank, and the temper of a child. The first test is to endure the high temperature. You just need to allow your body to withstand a certain temperature. Xian Rinxu explained honestly, put her hands on Suzanne's shoulders, and massaged Suzanne slightly. High temperature? Hearing this, Suzanne was stunned for a moment, then stood up. If it is temperature, it must be solar heat, and only this has something to do with angels and gods. This girl puts it lightly. It takes a year for the assessment. How can it be easy? Xian Rinxu nodded tenderly, her voice sounding soft and gentle to her heart. Seeing her weak and slightly anxious eyes, which seemed to beg her for forgiveness, Suzanne felt a lot less angry inside. He kissed Xian Rinxu fiercely, but the latter did not resist the push and completely let him do what he did. You're lucky this time. If you make your own decisions like this again, don't blame me for being rude. Seeing Xian Rinxu in her arms with her eyebrows lowered and her face blushing, Suzanne took a long breath and suppressed the restless blood. He will never fall for the honey trap. This is aniseed ice grass and apricot. Taking them together can resist water and fire, and has a great effect on resisting high temperatures. He took out 2 boxes from the storage ring, which contained 2 fairy grasses that he had picked from the ice and fire eyes before, which were just right for Xian Rinxu. Looking at the fairy grass in the box, Xian Rinxu was deeply moved and felt increasingly guilty. What are you doing? However, when she saw Suzanne using Behemoth's sharp claws to scratch her wrist, she was immediately frightened and screamed subconsciously. It will be extremely painful when you absorb them. There is their energy in my blood. If you refine it into your body, it will help you absorb it. Tick tick tick. While Suzanne was explaining, he also clenched his fist slightly. The blood slid down his wrist and fell into the jade bottle that Suzanne had prepared. Looking at the scarlet blood in front of her eyes, Xian Rinxu felt as if needles were pricking her heart. She bit her pink lips, feeling extremely distressed. Seeing Suzanne's serious look, Xian Rinxu smiled bitterly and tore off a piece of clothing. Regardless of Suzanne's obstruction, she wrapped his wound. If I can't bear this pain, I won't have to inherit the position of angel. Don't underestimate me. With a smile on her lips, Xian Rinxu looked at Suzanne with soft and distressed eyes, her cold and jade face full of stubbornness and perseverance. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Seeing the blood dyeing the white gauze red, Xian Rinxu couldn't control her emotions. She leaned against Suzanne's chest and burst into tears suddenly, and her tears fell as if they were free. The originally noble and elegant face turned into a painted face in the blink of an eye, with tears in his eyes, which made people feel distressed. Seeing Xian Rinxu like this, Suzanne's heart softened. Green light surged in his arm, and the wound had healed. I told you not to cry anymore. You are always so disobedient. Holding Xian Rinxu's delicate body, Suzanne cursed angrily, and the little anger in her heart disappeared. Isn't it just about getting married? It's not like I can't wait. She is her own person anyway, and she can't run away. Besides, that's not the only reason why he was angry. This girl always made her own decisions, and he had to remind her. It's not your fault, Xian Rinxu retorted angrily, reaching out to wipe the tears from her face. After thinking about it, Suzanne muttered, let's forget about the wedding. Let's wait until you inherit the angelic position to avoid distracting you. Don't want. As soon as the words came out, Xian Rinxu immediately met with a rebuttal. She stared at Suzanne with a stubborn expression and a serious look on her face. With a fierce look and a hint of fret. It was agreed upon, and she was unwilling to give up halfway. Besides, she had discussed this matter with her mother, Nangongling, and now she regretted it. Who would she become? Suzanne. Pooh. I knew you were greedy for my body, you female gangster. After a slight pause, Suzanne backed down and said, okay, let's get the wedding done first. You are justified, and I can eat soft food with peace of mind. HMM. Xian Ringsu smiled and nodded, looked at the night outside the window, and said with a shy expression, it's late at night now, and I'm a little sleepy. Oh, you can go to sleep then. I'm not sleepy yet. Suzanne waved his hand and said seriously, you. Hearing this, Xian Ringsu glared at Suzanne with shame and anger. She had hinted so clearly, this fool. However, when she saw the smile on Suzanne's lips, she immediately understood that Suzanne was teasing her and felt angry and ashamed inside. Then, I'm going to bed first. On purpose, right? Then I did it on purpose. Xian Ringsu blinked and prepared to get up and go to another room. While suddenly, all the lights went out, she was pulled back, and Suzanne's voice sounded in her ears. Our family is poor, so don't waste lamp oil. It's the same if you sleep here. Xian Ringsu, mock-up, TUI Chapter 258 Traveling Through Time and Space. In the early morning, the young birds sing for the first time and the golden phoenix sings after the tenderness. The two got up and dressed up. In order to express her apology for yesterday, Xian Ringsu took the initiative to go to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Zua, I have something to tell you. Lazily, holding Xian Ringsu's waist, Suzanne leaned on her shoulder and said with a look of deep affection, you. Tell me. I'll listen. It was like this every morning, and she was used to it. Xian Ringsu looked happy and was still busy with her meat soup. I might want to go over there and help my mother-in-law solve her problem, Suzanne said bluntly. Past, Xian Ringsu froze. She had no doubt that Suzanne had this ability. While she was surprised, her eyes seemed to understand something. Xian Ringsu turned around with a strange look on her face and said, in other words, she is right to call you teacher. I guess so. Since she knows me, I must have been to the past. It may be that I have been there, so she knows Taishang. This kind of causal relationship is very complicated. I don't know what will happen to my mother-in-law if I don't go there. So, Xian couldn't help but have a headache when he thought about this kind of thing. No wonder time travel in Dragon Ball was guilty. He finally understood it now. Then, how long are you going, Xian Ringsu looked at Suzanne sideways with a sullen expression on her face. Yesterday someone was still blaming himself for his wedding, and now he has to leave again. Pooh. Scumbag. About 0.001 seconds. After thinking about it, Suzanne replied, in order to avoid infinite travel and time and space chaos caused by time travel, the time of going and coming back must be the same point, otherwise, it may cause serious consequences. Then, let me go too. Hearing this, Xian Ringsu's eyes lit up, and she pleaded expectantly. She thought it would take a long time, and would delay a lot of things. When she heard that the time was so short, she also wanted to go there and have a look. Seeing Xian Ringsu's expectant look, although Suzanne couldn't refuse, she still shook her head. You'd better not go. Even if you go, you can't appear in front of everyone. Otherwise, if other people see your appearance, everything will be revealed. I don't want my mother-in-law to call me teacher in the future. I will call her mother-in-law. Hearing this, Xian Ringsu burst out laughing, and her face turned red hot when she thought of the strange relationship between the three of them. Then, go ahead and I'll wait for you to come back. Knowing that the matter was special, she did not insist on it. She wanted to go back to the past. She just wanted to know clearly what Bibidong had gone through. And this was one of the reasons why Suzanne stopped her black history. It's better to let it remain forever. At least it looks like everything is still beautiful. What did you do to me? Suddenly, she felt something strange in her waist. Xian Ringsu turned her head and looked over, but nothing was wrong. What can I do? Can I eat you so early in the morning? Suzanne pinched her nose and said breathlessly. Spit. Xian Ringsu's face suddenly turned red with embarrassment, and she pushed him away to prevent his lustful hands from causing further mischief. After eating the love breakfast, Suzanne asked Ling Linky to open the time tunnel and send herself back to the past. According to Bibidong's words, he met her when she was 12 years old, and Suzanne went directly to her at this time. The space-time tunnel was filled with blurry scenes. After traveling forward in time for a while, Suzanne came out of the space-time tunnel. What you see is a forest, with towering ancient trees blocking out the sun, and the fresh smell of vegetation filling the air, which seems a bit familiar. If this is correct, this should be the Stardow forest. With his eyes focused, Suzanne quickly changed his appearance, turning into an unattractive middle-aged man. Before finding Bibidang, the identities of Xue Qinghe and Taishang could not be revealed easily. To avoid unnecessary consequences, call out. Suddenly, a sound broke through the air. Suzanne raised his eyebrows and looked over, only to see a giant eagle 3 meters away heading towards him. Don't be afraid to laugh back, he just needs a mount, and here he comes. The figure soared out, and Suzanne landed firmly on the back of the giant eagle. Fly to the southwest, or don't blame me for killing you. Suzanne snorted coldly. After several struggles, it was all in vain. The giant eagle also understood the situation he was in, and honestly took Suzanne out of the Stardow forest and headed southwest. All this makes Suzanne look more like an ordinary soul master, so as not to deviate from history. Bibidang is from the Harjandaz's kingdom, which is one of the affiliated kingdoms of the Xian Empire, and is located in the southwest of the empire. Harjandaz's city, the main city of the Harjandaz's kingdom. In the restaurant, a middle-aged man was eating an unpalatable meal calmly, with a bamboo hat on his head that perfectly covered his face. Ding dong. Waiter, come here and ask you something. The man in the bamboo hat shouted, stopping his chopsticks. The sound of the coins was so clear that the waiter immediately ran over, looked at the gold coins on the table, and swallowed greedily. Sir, I don't know what's going on with you, but I will tell you everything you know, and tell me everything you want. Reluctantly looking away from the coins, the waiter turned to the man, full of flattery and respect. These days, money is not the bastard, he is. Let me ask you, is there a soul master in Harjandaz's city who is the soul master of the Death Spider Emperor? The man in the bamboo hat said bluntly. The man was none other than Suzanne, who came from the Stardow forest. As for this bamboo hat, it is naturally indispensable to match it with a master's pretense. I don't know much about this young one, but I heard that there is a very powerful girl in the great soul fighting arena. Her martial spirit is a spider. As he said that, the waiter reminded him enthusiastically, if you want to find a soul master, it's best to go to the soul fighting arena in the spirit fighting hall, but I suggest you go to the soul fighting arena to inquire about the news. After all, the waiter had to cover up the rest with a smile and give him a look. If you want to get soul master information from a behemoth like Wuhan Palace, it is absolutely impossible unless you have extraordinary means. There are many people coming and going in the spirit fighting arena, and there are many spirit masters. If you ask a little bit, someone will know. Have you ever heard of that girl's name? Suzanne waved her hand and asked, already having a goal in mind. I really don't know about this. I just heard it from a customer a few days ago. By the way, I heard that she has obtained the Silver Fighting Soul badge. She is so powerful. The waiter said with admiration on his face. Well, I understand. Hearing this, Suzanne was already confident and waved to the waiter. Hey with a smile on his face, the waiter put away the gold coins. When he turned around, Suzanne's figure had already disappeared. What a weirdo. Shaking his head, the waiter didn't pay attention and picked up the dishes on the table. Chapter 259. Bibidang is in trouble. At night, Harjandaz's spirit arena. The hustle and bustle during the day continued into the night. In the entire Harjandaz's kingdom, the Grand Soul Fighting Arena was probably the busiest point. Suzanne came here after changing back to his original appearance, since she is Bibidang's future teacher. Wherever she appears, Suzanne can rest assured that she will appear as Taishang. The first soul fighting field. A white figure appeared on the observation deck of the auditorium like a ghost, quietly watching the fight on the soul fighting stage below. It was a man and a woman. The man was holding a black battle axe and was naked, with granite-like muscles exposed. Suzanne didn't pay much attention to the man, and fixed his eyes on the woman. Purple black armor covered the surface of the body, and while the face was covered by a piece of carapace, it seemed to be wearing a mask, so the specific face could not be seen clearly. Down from the abdomen is a huge round spherical body with 8 thick long legs extending out from the periphery, with green hair growing on them. Tick tick tick, green and purple disgusting slime dripped onto the ground, making a popping sound, and the solid soul fighting platform was corroded into pits under his feet. 4 soul rings were shining. Judging from his cultivation level, he had actually reached the soul sect cultivation level point at the age of 12. He is already a soul sect. No wonder he can surpass Tang Heo and become the youngest titled Douluo. His talent is truly outstanding. Alas, seeing the beauty who was originally as beautiful as a peach blossom, but possessed by a martial spirit, Suzanne couldn't help but feel a little unfair on behalf of her mother-in-law. As long as she is given some normal martial arts, she will not be born a villain. It's all because of the author's forced setting, which has caused countless women suffering. Especially her. The most point on the soul fighting stage, the battle became more and more intense. Both sides were opponents with the silver soul fighting badge level, and the battle was also extremely fierce. Bibidong is a level 42 soul sect, but he is fighting at par with a level 47 soul sect with the power attack type, and he is actually still suppressing the opponent. It had to be said that she was indeed very strong. Even Suzanne couldn't help but be surprised by her calmness at such a young age. It seems that Xian Rinxu's character is probably inherited from her. The third soul skill, Death Spider Web Binding. Seeing that his opponent had been hit by his spider poison and his actions became chaotic, Bibidong sneered, and the third soul ring on the sole of his foot suddenly lit up. Relying on her fourth soul skill, the Thorn Spider Armor, she deliberately fought and retreated, using a delaying tactic, just to wait for this moment. The early strength of weapon soul masters cannot be equal to that of beast soul masters, especially in terms of body amplification. Poison is the greatest restraint for them. Dark purple spider web spurted out from her abdomen. As the purple poisonous gas sprayed out, a spider web also expanded in the air and rushed towards the opponent. Stab. The spider web hit directly, binding the opponent to the soul fighting platform, and the purple black venom corroded the skin and came out towards the blood. Bibidong walked over slowly, looking down at her opponent like a queen, and a cold voice without any emotion rang out. I advise you to surrender, otherwise you will definitely die. If the spider poison gets into your heart, I give up. I give up. Under the burning and corrosion of the poison, the man suddenly felt numb in his limbs, and he quickly begged for mercy. In the third spirit battle, Bibidong wins. Hearing the referee speak, Bibidong stabbed a spider claw into the man's blood and sucked out all the toxins in his body. As the martial spirit faded, Suzanne finally saw Bibidong's original appearance. Wearing a black tight-fitting dress, the slightly exposed skin is like jade with pink powder. Even though the mask blocks it, you can see the whole picture at a glance. From her soft and charming eyes, Suzanne could even imagine how stunning that almost perfect face was. The fresh and refined temperament exudes from the inside out, like a peach blossom in full bloom. Gorgeous but not coquettish, elegant but not toyed with. Although he was born in spring, he carries the stubbornness of being proud of snow and winter. But peach blossoms are peach blossoms after all, and there will always be rain in spring, and when it comes, it will fail. After winning the winning streak, Bibidong left the fighting spirit arena directly without staying here for a second. Suzanne also drifted away and followed Bibidong invisibly, intending to quietly observe what was going on with Bibidong. PFFD. Seeing that no one was following her, Bibidong turned around and came to a small alley. Her mask was suddenly taken off, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of her mouth. With a pale face, Bibidong leaned tightly against the corner, her chest bulging like a mountain rising and falling violently, and her calm look disappeared. Although her fourth soul skill can greatly enhance her defense, how can she remain unharmed when facing an offensive opponent whose spirit is a battle axe? She should be strong and invulnerable in front of others. Before she just resisted, seeing Bibidong vomiting blood, Suzanne was stunned. She really thought that Bibidong was really scary. That's how feelings are. As if aware that someone was staring at her, Bibidong scanned her eyes warily for a week, but found nothing wrong. feeling vaguely like she was being watched, Bibi Dong frowned, put on a mask, and left quickly. This mother-in-law is really vigilant above the sky. Suzanne couldn't help but laugh as he watched him turn around a few times before arriving at the city gate, following Bibi Dong all the way out of Harjandaz's city. After leaving the city gate, there was another tail behind Bibi Dong. It seemed that she was being targeted. After we walked for a while, Bibi Dong suddenly stopped. I've been following you for so long. It's time to come out. With a cold snort and an explosion, purple black soul power surged out of Bibi Dong's body. Her face also turned grim, and Bibi Dong's legs were slightly outward, assuming a fighting posture. Suzanne, it shouldn't be that I, who is invisible, am not so bad, young girl. You have quite a keen sense. There was a sneer, and a frail middle-aged man slowly walked out. His face was dotted with pockmarks, the man's steps were sloppy, his eyes were evil, and he shot naked at Bibi Dong's delicate body. Seeing the disgusting look on the man's face, Bibi Dong's eyes shone coldly. Regardless of her physical weakness, she made fists with both hands and directly attacked the man. Not good. But just halfway through the charge, Bibi Dong's face suddenly turned pale. She quickly backed away and began to flee towards the rear. I saw 5 soul rings surging on the soles of the man's feet. He was a soul king. The woman I am targeting. Can you escape? The man smiled evilly, and his feet were immediately replaced by a snake's tail, and he swayed to catch up. He was extremely fast, and he had caught up with Bibi Dong in the blink of an eye. Chapter 260. The plot of this terrible street. Little girl, I've been wearing the mask for so long, and there's no one here now. Why don't you let me appreciate it? Rubbing his palms together, evil fire surged in the man's eyes. When I think of the amazing and wonderful feeling that my big hands will have on this graceful body, I can't help but feel evil thoughts. I advise you to leave quickly, otherwise don't blame me for being rude to you. Gritting her teeth tightly, Bibi Dong's eyes were red and her fists were clenched until they turned white. As long as she has the strength of the Soul King, she must make life and death worse for the guy in front of her, especially those disgusting eyes. Leave. The corners of his mouth were raised slightly, and the man didn't take Bibi Dong's threat to heart at all. I have been observing you for a few days. Now let me leave. Do you think I'm scared? With a sneer on his face, the man did not hide the evil light in his eyes. You'd better be smarter tonight and serve me comfortably, otherwise don't blame me for killing him with my ruthless hands. You look like a chick, right? If you die, it won't be fun to play. The man licked the corners of his mouth and slightly unbuttoned his shirt as he spoke. His fiery eyes were like those of a wolf, swimming towards this side. You wanna die? After hearing these words, Bibi Dong's only sense was completely replaced by anger. Her eyes were as red as crystal, and she rushed over. The possession of martial spirit was ugly to begin with, and coupled with Bibi Dong's ferocious appearance, it was even more chilling. It's a pity that the man didn't seem to care at all. Although the spirit possessed looks a bit ugly, I definitely look good, so let's just find some new fun. With an evil smile on his face, as he watched Bibi Dong rushing toward him, the 3rd soul ring on the sole of the man's foot suddenly lit up. A mouthful of white mist suddenly spit out from the corner of his mouth and spread around. The man smiled and distanced himself from Bibi Dong, as if he had no intention of fighting. Seeing the man retreating, Bibi Dong suddenly felt something bad. She saw the white smoke coming, and wanted to avoid it. Unfortunately, she was already furious and charging forward. The white smoke spread quickly, and she suddenly fell into the white mist. Poison? Sensing something was wrong, Bibi Dong immediately covered her mask and stepped back quickly. Unfortunately, no matter how fast she went, the white mist had already entered her body. With her soul empty, she couldn't resist the poison at all. Her brain felt dizzy and her body began to burn. Boom. Suddenly, Bibi Dong fell straight to the ground. Her martial spirit retracted from her body, and she fell unconscious. Ha ha ha. This is not only poison, but also a magical product that can make women ecstasy. Just enjoy it slowly. Licking the corner of his mouth, the man quickly swam over here, as if he wanted to vent his anger call out. Suddenly, a white light flashed, and the man didn't notice it at all. Suddenly, his movement stopped. A drop of blood flowed from the blood hole on his forehead, and with a loud bang, the man fell to the ground. Suzanne slowly retracted his finger. He had no mercy for such people. Bibi Dong is only 12 years old now. Although she is more mature and beautiful, she cannot be so despicable and shameless evil spirit. Death is not a pity. Men should rely on charm to conquer girls, not drugs, just like him. Reader, do you rely on charm? You just rely on stalking and cooking skills, and your charm has nothing to do with it. After dispelling the invisibility state, Suzanne fell from the sky and came to Bibi Dong's side. Just when Suzanne was about to help Bibi Dong up and detoxify her, a cold light flashed in front of Suzanne's eyes, and Suzanne was also startled. Giloo. After looking at the distance between the dagger and her lower body, Suzanne swallowed hard, sweat dripping from her forehead. Mother-in-law, you are such a cruel person. Fortunately, he had quick hands and quick eyes, and caught the dagger, otherwise he would have experienced the pain of losing his brother. Suzanne suddenly exerted force on her fingers, and the dagger flew out of Bibi Dong's hand like an arrow. I am the one who saved you. Why are you doing anything to me? Seeing Bibi Dong gritting her silver teeth and glaring at her angrily, Suzanne shouted angrily. Their remaining consciousness dissipated. Bibi Dong's face turned as red hot iron. Her hands trembled as she rubbed her body, and her red lips couldn't help but let out a shameful moan. Suzanne's face turned dark. Why does this kind of plot feel like it's going to go bad? Seeing Bibi Dong leaning towards her, Suzanne quickly moved away and pointed her finger on her forehead, drawing out the poison from her body and injecting some soul power into her. Hey, don't faint. Seeing Bibi Dong suddenly fainting, Suzanne was slightly stunned. He turned around and looked at the darkness around him, but there was no trace of light. Alas, Suzanne sighed slightly, raised his fingers slightly, and Bibi Dong's body seemed to be dragged up by something, floating in the air, taking Bibi Dong with him. Suzanne flew into the sky and headed towards the woods not far away. He did not choose to go back to Harjandaz's city. There were so many people in the city that he would inevitably be noticed by interested people. As for myself, if I say I belong to this era, I do, and if I don't, I might as well not show up in front of as many people as possible. When they came to the mountain forest, Suzanne put Bibi Dong down. There was also a thick blanket on the ground, so that she would not be disturbed. Looking at the stars in the sky, Suzanne also lay down and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. Alas, how can I rest without Xue's legs to rest on? Taking out her mobile phone, Suzanne planned to send a message to Xian Ringsu, but after thinking about it, she held back. Time flows, but the time he wants to go back is the moment after he leaves. If he was in contact with Xian Ringsu, he would be chatting with Xian Ringsu as time passed, but after he returned, he would be living with Xian Ringsu as time was fixed. Therefore, what he said is in vain. Xian Ringsu will always be in a state of knowing, but not knowing. In case time gets messed up further. Shaking his head helplessly, Suzanne suddenly felt a little lonely. After playing a single player game for a while, he laid a formation around him and slowly fell asleep. Early the next morning, as soon as Suzanne woke up, she realized that she was tied to a tree, and in front of her was Bibi Dong, who had already woken up. It has to be said that Bibi Dong's youthful appearance is indeed delicate and beautiful, and her skin, that can be broken, is white and crystal clear, without any trace of time. But what's with the bruises on your face? She wasn't injured last night either. Girl, you are so kind to your savior. I'm so happy to see Lizin. Seeing that your girl is very talented, I won't argue with you. His body moved slightly, and the rope was untied. Suzanne smiled, patted the dust on his clothes, and stood up slowly. Chapter 261 Training from Son-in-law. Who knows why you saved me? Don't think I will be grateful to you. Bibi Dong's face was fierce and her tone was cold, which sounded a little unhuman. As she said that, she pointed to the bruises on her face, and then gritted her teeth and said, "This morning's punch, let's clean it up." Well, his expression froze slightly. Suzanne looked at the bruises on Bibi Dong's face and subconsciously asked, "Did I inflict this injury on you?" Incredible, he actually punched his mother-in-law. With her character, if she found out later that it was her who did it, damn it, he couldn't be even exposed if he was beaten to death. He couldn't bear the reputation of being unfilial and being struck by lightning in the end. Seeing that Suzanne was still pretending, Bibi Dong was furious. How dare you deny that you have set up a formation here just for the two of us? Is it possible, or did I beat myself up? Bibi Dong's face was majestic and domineering as he glared at Suzanne. There was a faint sense of oppression on his face, and Suzanne saw a hint of the Pope, as if he was facing Pope Bibi Dong. This is none of my business. In order to save you last night, I delayed my normal sleep. Yeah, stretching. Suzanne had a lazy look on his old face, as if he hadn't had a good rest, and then he spoke. Plus, how can I sleep well after spending a night in this wilderness? Even now, I still have back pain, so I should be a little angry when I wake up. Getting up angry, you didn't sleep well, and you still wake up angry. Also, your blanket is thicker than mine, almost a meter. After all, he was a benefactor. Bibi Dong clenched her fists and then unclenched her fists. Okay, let's settle the matter and we can go our separate ways from now on. Let me out now. What? Let you go? Suzanne blinked in confusion and looked at Bibi Dong in disbelief. What else do you want to do? Bibi Dong stepped back some distance warily. I saved you and sent me away without even saying thank you. Who do you think I am, Sue? Xian was immediately furious and looking at Bibi Dong's arrogant look. She was furious. He is now 100% sure that Qian Rink Su is definitely Bibi Dong's daughter. Even their personalities are so similar, a truly tsunde lolly. Do you think your life is worth a punch or your innocence is worth a punch? If so, if you fight back, I will buy it. Powerful energy suddenly burst out from her body. Suzanne stared at Bibi Dong, and her face turned pale due to the pressure from her mental power. Then what do you want? Knowing that Suzanne was very powerful, Bibi Dong gritted her teeth, feeling helpless and angry. From today on, you are my maid, and your life belongs to me, Sue. Xian declared domineeringly, the pressure so overwhelming that Bibi Dong couldn't hold her head up, leaving her no room to resist. When dealing with Leng Ao, he must be more domineering than her. He must temper Bibi Dong's temper, otherwise something will happen sooner or later. If it hadn't been for me yesterday, I don't know what would have happened. Although she is very cautious and careful now, she lacks the tact and sharpness in dealing with others. This is very much like Tang Heo back then. The long sword is unstoppable and can win every battle, but it only takes one break to ruin a person's life. If you have the ability, you can be crazy, but you can't be arrogant, especially in front of me. I traveled across time to be a teacher, not to be your future son-in-law. Bibi Dong's eyes were cracked, and she held on tightly, refusing to bow down. Why do you want me to be your maid? I don't accept it. Just because I saved you, I'm invincible. With his hands behind his back, Suzanne faced the sky. His figure was aloof, and his sharp eyes seemed to break through the sky and compete with the sky. Sorry, in terms of pretentiousness, his cooking skills are just as professional. The bone-chilling breath came to her, and Bibi Dong shivered. The irresistible pressure, like the mighty power of heaven, gave her a sense of powerless fear in her heart. Invincible in the world, what a crazy tone. Bibi Dong's eyes flickered, holding back her fear, and retorted coldly, I don't think so. As soon as the words came out, Bibi Dong couldn't help but tremble when he saw Suzanne's eyes glacing towards him. Don't talk about title Douluo, I see you. Even the younger generation Tang Heo can't beat you. Lowering her head, Bibi Dong continued to mutter. Although her words were trembling, there was a stubborn obsession in them. Especially when mentioning title Douluo and Tang Heo, Bibi Dong's eyes even showed yearning and envy, and her bright eyes were full of fighting spirit. Sooner or later, she will become a title Douluo, and even defeat the man who is said to be the strongest of the younger generation, Tang Heo. Tang Heo is nothing. Even his great-grandfather Tang Chen, a level 99 ultimate Douluo, is no match for me. You, a yellow-haired girl. Ha, do you know how many strong men in the world can there be? Looking at Bibi Dong with disdain, Suzanne made up his mind that, if she wanted to become a disciple in the future, she would have to hang on to her. Being my maid is all about flattering you. Don't be ignorant of what is good and what is bad. Want to be an apprentice? Snort. Talk about it later. Tang Chen? Hearing this name, Bibi Dong was confused, but when she heard that he was a level 99 titled Douluo, her expression suddenly changed. Titled Douluo is already the best in the world. A level 99 titled Douluo, then, wouldn't he be the strongest among the titled Douluo? His Bibi Dong suddenly took a breath of air. When she came to her senses, she felt that Suzanne was bragging. Even a level 99 titled Douluo can't defeat you, so aren't you really invincible? Bibi Dong looked at Suzanne with blank eyes, full of disbelief. Even if he beat her to death, she couldn't believe that she was so lucky to be saved by such a powerful person. Those powerful people must stay away from the hustle and bustle of the world and practice hard in the secret rooms and mountains. How could they appear here and be encountered by themselves? Senior, despite your age, your strength is not something you can just brag about. Since you are so strong, why have I never heard of you? Bibi Dong questioned. Then, what's my name? Hearing this, Suzanne raised the corners of his mouth slightly and asked has the topic changed so much? After being stunned for a moment, Bibi Dong snorted back. How do I know? You didn't tell me. Then how do you know I'm not famous? You don't know me. Suzanne stepped forward slightly, looked down and asked. This. Unexpectedly, Suzanne deliberately set a trap to reject her, causing Bibi Dong to choke. Then, you don't know the honorable name of the senior? Taking a deep breath, Bibi Dong asked with a little respect, even though she was angry. Oh, I'm not famous, and you don't know me, so I'd better not talk about it. Suzanne waved his hand and replied seriously, mock up. I have never lost when I criticize people. If a chef doesn't know how to criticize people, he can cook good dishes. 10,000 grass and mud horses galloped in her heart. Bibi Dong's face was as dark as ink. Who I am? Where am I? Damn it. I've even taken off my pants. And that's what you're saying to me? Exclamation mark. Chapter 262. Bibi Dong comes over. Staring at Suzanne with fire-like eyes, Bibi Dong was furious. Originally she thought she had great luck and was really a senior expert, but it turned out he is actually a shameless talking old bastard. Still want me to be your maid? Don't even dream about it. Bibi Dong, has a twin martial soul and is destined to become a titled Douluo in the future. How can she be a slave? Even death is absolutely impossible. Boom. Suddenly, a shocking explosion sounded, as if the sky was about to fall, shaking the sky and the earth. Not far away, a 100-meter peak was seen bursting with earth and rocks. Countless rocks and loose soil collapsed, and dust was rising all over the sky. The originally towering mountain peak was cut in half, and the deep groove revealed the morning glow, as if it had been chewed by some giant beast. Suddenly, Bibi Dong's angry expression froze, and she looked at Suzanne in confusion. Oh, I'm old, and my fingers always want to move. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anyone. Withdrawing his fingers leisurely, Suzanne let out a long sigh, put his hands on his waist, and twisted like an old man in his 60s. Those clumsy and awkward movements really looked like this Bibi Dong god is so disobedient that he moves blindly. Knowing that Suzanne was showing off her strength to warn herself, Bibi Dong glanced at the shattered mountain, and a strange light suddenly flashed in her fearful eyes. It is impossible to be a maid. Not even in this life, please. Also ask the teacher to accept me as a disciple. Taking a deep breath, Bibi Dong folded her hands, lowered her upper body and bent her body at 90 degrees, her face full of sincere pleading. Coming, she came with enchanting steps. Wanting me to accept you as my disciple is simply a daydream. 30 years later, you are my recognized disciple, and you will never be able to ruin the plot. Yes, this is definitely not revenge, and he is not an narrow-minded person. Accept you as a disciple. Suzanne pretended to be stunned, then shook his head. With your qualifications, apart from your twin martial arts souls, there seems to be nothing else that stands out, especially your character. I'm also your savior after all, but you repay kindness with hatred. I can't accept such a disciple. Bibi Dong was also horrified when she heard Suzanne mention the twin martial arts souls. This was the deepest secret in her heart, and no one else knew about it. In fact, she only revealed her twin martial arts spirits once. With this thought, Bibi Dong became more and more certain that she must become a disciple. In terms of talent, she is definitely not inferior to anyone. What she lacks is a teacher to guide her in her cultivation. If she had his guidance, her chances of becoming a titled Douluo would be greatly increased, and she might even be able to defeat Tang Heo, who is known as the strongest man of the younger generation. Disciple was indeed a little rude just now. Please forgive me, teacher. Biting her thin lips, Bibi Dong looked at Suzanne eagerly, her eyes full of expectation. I haven't accepted you as my apprentice yet, so don't mention the word teacher. We'd better clarify the reason for saving your life first. Xian waved his hands quickly, as if he had seen through Bibi Dong's careful thoughts, and continued to speak. If I agree to accept you as my disciple, well, it means that you don't have to repay the favor, but instead you get a teacher for nothing. So, you repay the favor first, and we'll talk about the master-disciple thing later. Suzanne said without any doubt. If I agree to be your maid for a month, will you accept me as your disciple? Bibi Dong asked with a frown. Her intuition told her that there was a huge trap waiting for her inside. This bad old man was definitely not a good person. As for whether I will accept you as my disciple, it depends on your performance in the future, Suzanne replied calmly with a slight smile on his lips. Performance in the future. Hearing this, Bibi Dong gritted her teeth. Although it seemed that the other party was giving her a chance, Bibi Dong always felt that the other party was teasing her. A month later, whether he was satisfied or not was not a matter of his words, and he couldn't do anything to him. After thinking about it way, Bibi Dong always felt that she was the one who suffered the loss, but she finally chose to agree. Okay, I will be your maid for a month first, Bibi Dong said resolutely. By staying with a top expert, even for a month, she could learn something from the sidelines. Moreover, there is a top strong person protecting him, so that what happened last night will not happen. Isn't she just a maid? Bibi Dong, never cares about such minutiae. That's a good attitude. From now on, just call me your majesty. Suzanne nodded with satisfaction. He noticed that someone seemed to be coming, and he didn't want to stay here any longer. Okay, take me to your home, Suzanne reminded Bibi Dong. Children, do you have many questions? After being stunned, Bibi Dong asked in disbelief. I'm just a maid, shouldn't I go to your house? Xian, if you can come to my house in 30 years, I will definitely welcome you. I came to this continent this time just for fun. I don't have a place to live. I'll stay at your house for now, Suzanne said seriously. This continent? Bibi Dong raised her eyebrows slightly. Although she could tell something was wrong, she didn't ask casually. However, if you go to her house, what? Is there any inconvenience? Seeing Bibi Dong hesitating, Suzanne couldn't help but speak. Okay, come with me. Bibi Dong took a deep breath and finally agreed, taking Suzanne to her home. 10 minutes later, the two came to a big mountain. You sure this is your home? Looking at the two-story simple wooden house located in the valley, Suzanne's mouth twitched sharply. Looking at Bibi Dong's appearance, he felt extremely incredible. Judging from her appearance and demeanor, how come she is a lady among everyone, and she actually lives here? Moreover, didn't she win a lot of gold coins in the soul fighting arena? Is it so difficult to change to a decent house? Doesn't this mother-in-law want to deliberately abuse herself? I've been used to being alone since I was a child. Besides, I won't be disturbed by others while practicing. Knowing what Suzanne meant, Bibi Dong quickly explained. Forget it, let's just make do with it. Suzanne sighed helplessly. She didn't expect Bibi Dong to be an orphan, and Xian Ringsu never told her this. In order for twin martial souls to appear, the martial souls and soul power of both parents need to be almost the same. Your parents are also soul masters, so you won't be in this situation, right? Suzanne looked at Bibi Dong curiously. The Death Spider Emperor and the Soul Eating Spider Emperor were of high quality, but there didn't seem to be many records of them in the mainland, and there weren't such powerful soul master families. My parents are both ordinary people. It's just a mistake of chance that I can have twin martial arts souls. Bibi Dong smiled and shook her head. Her smile was full of bitterness, but also contained the luck and fear of escaping from death. Chapter 263 The Daily Life of Two Foxes. You didn't inherit your martial spirit? Suzanne was very surprised when he heard Bibi Dong's words originally. She thought that the Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Eating Spider Emperor were martial spirits from Bibi Dong's parents, but she didn't expect that they were neither. Call out. As soon as her figure flashed, Suzanne grabbed Bibi Dong's arm and checked the situation inside her body. As expected, Suzanne found two highly toxic energies in her body. Although the two energies maintained a balance and did not cause any harm to her body, this balanced relationship is too unstable and seems to be broken at any time. What? Did you eat to get the twin martial souls? Suzanne looked at Bibi Dong curiously. When Suzanne grabbed her arm, she felt a gentle energy wash over her body, and Bibi Dong's expression became a little unnatural. When I went to the forest to collect herbs, I was bitten by a spider. Bibi Dong explained. Impossible. As soon as these words came out, Suzanne objected abruptly. It is absolutely impossible to obtain a martial soul by being bitten by a spider. Otherwise, wouldn't anyone who was bitten by a spider be able to become a soul master? Moreover, Bibi Dong is a twin martial soul, so it is definitely not as simple as being bitten by a spider. There are obviously two different toxins all over her body, and a strange energy merges the two toxins, forming a balance like a yin and yang fish. And this energy is very similar to the energy in his blood. Yes, it is the energy of the fairy herbs. Spider grass. Taking a deep breath, Suzanne let go of Bibi Dong's arm. Although your body is okay for the time being, the balance between the two toxin energies is about to be broken. If you continue to practice, you will most likely be poisoned and die. As he said that, Suzanne's expression became a little serious. No wonder he always felt something was wrong when he watched Douluo before. That's why Douluo's Bifasphorus Snake Emperor poison, if it wasn't suppressed by the ice and fire eyes, he would have died long ago. And Bibi Dong, the martial spirit Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Eating Spider Emperor double poisonous martial spirit. The toxicity of the two is no worse than that of the Jade Phosphorus Snake Emperor poison, but she can live well, which is simply incredible. Now it seems that the two are maintaining a balance, but with the Death Spider King she cultivated first, the balance between the two will inevitably be broken. Titled Douluo level poison is extremely terrifying. How do you control the poison so that it doesn't explode? You mean I will die? Bibi Dong's face suddenly turned pale, and she asked in disbelief. If you continue to practice the Death Spider Emperor martial spirit, you will definitely die. Suzanne replied meaningfully. You want me to start cultivating another martial spirit now? Bibi Dong frowned and asked. She already had her own way. She would first practice one martial soul to the extreme, and then practice another one. In that case, her other martial soul can all be attached with high level soul rings. It would be too wasteful to practice now. After all, she is a soul sect, and can only withstand 1,000-year soul ring. Suzanne, is this what I mean? You absolutely can't start practicing your second martial soul now. You can wait until you become a titled Douluo before you can start. Also, you need to match the soul bone, otherwise the second martial soul will be attached with a soul ring, and the terrifying increase will directly cause you to explode and die. So, Xian's face was full of seriousness. He couldn't destroy Bibi Dong. The second martial spirit must be cultivated later, otherwise the plot will change drastically. Didn't you say that I would die if I continued to practice? How could I become a titled Douluo? Bibi Dong pouted and replied angrily. I'm here. What are you afraid of? It's just twin martial souls. It can completely imprison the other martial soul. Then you can just cultivate one martial soul. Suzanne waved his hand nonchalantly. How could it be difficult to catch him with such a thing? The spider grass energy can maintain a relative balance between the two. Once one is too strong and the balance breaks down, the explosive power will break through the spider grass energy, and she will become poisonous. While one side is overwhelmingly strong, there will be no toxin explosion, because the Death Spider King toxin will suppress the latter. The so-called toxin explosion occurs at a critical point. As long as this point is blocked, then when Bibi Dong's Death Spider Emperor becomes stronger, he will be able to dominate everything. It turns out that your majesty is so powerful, so please help me suppress the other martial spirit. Smiling in surprise, Bibi Dong quickly sat down cross-legged, turning her back to Suzanne. feeling A little blown away, Suzanne nodded subconsciously, and when he was about to take action, he suddenly froze. No. When did you agree to help you? The speed you can climb along the pole is faster than your mother's rocket. Mother-in-law, you are quite sophisticated. Seeing that Bibi Dong was still pretending to be confused, as if asking herself why she did it, Suzanne gritted his teeth, took a deep breath, and then forced a soft smile. I'm sorry, I don't seem to have a reason to help you. After all, you are my maid now. How can a maid order the master? Bibi Dong, depend on. The response is quite fast, as expected of an old fox. Seeing Suzanne react so quickly, Bibi Dong felt as if she had met her opponent, but on the surface, her face was droopy, and she stared at Suzanne aggrievedly, as if she had been bullied. Suzanne, mother-in-law, do you want to park your acting skills? With a wave of his sleeves, Suzanne ignored Bibi Dong and walked to the side, where there were two big trees. With a wave of his arm, a hammock was placed between two trees, and Suzanne flew directly onto it. I'm tired. Go and find some fruit for me to satisfy my craving. Then, an old-fashioned voice rang out, and Suzanne didn't even look at Bibi Dong, but just started playing with her phone. As a master, you must have the awareness of a master and the majesty of a teacher. Fruit. Hearing this, Bibi Dong's mouth twitched sharply. There were only some unripe wild fruits in these deep mountains and forests. If she were in Haagen-Dazs City, it wouldn't be a problem for her to buy a few sacks, but now she was asked where to find them. Moreover, since you are so strong, you can just fly to Haagen-Dazs City at will. As for giving orders to me, old bastard, old fox, but thinking about the poison on her body, Bibi Dong gritted her teeth. She had to lower her head under the eaves, and planned to visit the village a few miles away. Little boy, play with me. With the corner of her mouth raised slightly, Suzanne withdrew his eyes from the corner of his eyes and stepped down, intending to kill some time. Oh, I don't know how long I will stay here. Looking at the trees around him, Suzanne suddenly wanted to go back. It would be great to sleep with his wife in his arms every day. Here, there is no return date. Although he came here mainly to solve Bibi Dong's problems, he also had to play the role of Taishang. According to Bibi Dong's feelings for Taishang, they are more like father and daughter. This is not a monthly job. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Mother-in-law's Transformation Plan. Donja, come and give me a squeeze on my shoulders. The bed in your room is too hard. Didn't you get gold coins for winning the game? Suzanne waved. I like. Seeing that Suzanne really thought of herself as a maid, Bibi Dong's chest heaved violently with anger, and she snarled angrily, but still came over. No, you haven't eaten. Are you so weak? Bibi Dong. It's true that I didn't eat anything this morning. Don't you think so, Bibi? Dong gritted her teeth, especially because her stomach was growling. She was even more furious. Hearing this, Suzanne couldn't help but feel a little hungry. He had eaten some snacks yesterday, and the food in the restaurant was not to his liking. Then, you go ahead and cook. I'm not very picky about food. 4 dishes and 1 soup will be enough. Suzanne generously asked Bibi Dong to stop the massage, and ordered. Bibi Dong, 4 dishes and 1 soup. I just eat whatever I want every day. The requirements for a free meal are so high. Oh my god. Taking a deep breath, and looking at Suzanne's comfortable and leisurely look, Bibi Dong wanted to lift up the bench. What the hell, so irritating, isn't it? Just 4 dishes and 1 soup. Isn't that difficult? Seeing Bibi Dong's furious look, Suzanne blinked in confusion. Thinking about it in the future, he almost prepared it for you according to the standards of a Manchuhan banquet. Now he wants you to cook 4 dishes, but you can't even do it? As a son-in-law, he licks himself like a dog, and it will make you feel comfortable. Now, I'm the teacher, and the relationship between our mother-in-law and son-in-law will be decided later. There is no difficulty. Gritting her teeth, and holding back these words from between her teeth, Bibi Dong clenched her pink fist tightly, and headed towards the kitchen with deep resentment. Wait a minute. Seeing Bibi Dong leaving like this. Suzanne immediately stopped her. No need to guess. Suzanne could already predict the level of her cooking skills. What else do you want? Bibi Dong's mentality was a bit explosive. If she had a knife to kill him at this moment, she wouldn't have to compromise like this. This is a simple recipe book, and you follow it. Suzanne waved his hand and threw a cookbook over. He didn't trust Bibi Dong's craftsmanship. Snort. After receiving the recipe, Bibi Dong turned around and walked into the kitchen without even looking at it. Oh, you still have a little temper seeing Bibi Dong like this. Suzanne smiled and said nothing, and couldn't help but feel even more angry at Kan Zhongji. The other party was originally a young girl, innocent, but he ruined her life. From a girl to a young woman, it is just a small step, but no one knows what the consequences of this step will be. Point burning wood to make a fire. Bibi Dong looked at the recipes on the side and became more and more angry as she thought about them. If you want to eat delicious food, go to the restaurant and buy it yourself. I'm a maid, not a nanny. Bah. Fuck your damn recipe. She threw the recipe directly into the fire. Watching the fire burn the recipe to ashes, Bibi Dong was excited and happy, but she also couldn't help feeling regretful and worried. Just do what you usually eat, whether you like it or not. Pouting her lips, Bibi Dong immediately got busy. As for the recipe that had been burned to ashes, she simply threw it out of mind. Eaters have short mouths, so if you can eat, it's good, but you are picky about the fat and thin ones. Half an hour later, looking at the food on the table, Suzanne looked blank and said in disbelief, "Is this what you usually eat?" 3 servings of vegetables, 2 chicken drumsticks, 1 seaweed soup. At first glance, it seems okay. But as for your vegetables, why do I feel like there are 3 ways to prepare the same dish? I don't have much food at home, so you can just eat it. Being stared at by Suzanne with disdain, Bibi Dong's silver teeth squirmed slightly and shouted coldly. If she were alone, a portion of chicken drumsticks and a portion of vegetables would be great, and it would not delay her cultivation. Now it's good, there's an old man in the house. Hearing this, Suzanne sympathized with Bibi Dong even more. The edge of a sword comes from sharpening, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. This is absolutely true. However, when Suzanne took a slight taste, his expression suddenly changed. Nonsense. Did you follow the recipe? Suzanne quickly wiped his mouth with his sleeve. He was no longer used to the palace food. As he expected, Bibi Dong's food was even more unpalatable. Even though the recipe is a very full-like tutorial, the taste will be somewhat similar, but she's better than someone's food. Sorry, but his palate may need a few days off. I made it according to the recipe. Isn't it delicious? Bibi Dong Mian replied without changing her expression. The taste is okay. After saying that, she tasted it and didn't feel anything was wrong, which made her think she had done something wrong. Maybe it's because I'm too mouthy. You can enjoy it by yourself. I can't enjoy it. Xian sighed helplessly and did not blame Bibi Dong. He walked into the kitchen silently, planning to make a bowl of convenience and eat it with biscuits. Even though soaking instant noodles is simple, it also contains knowledge. The water temperature, the amount of ingredients, etc. must be considered. For him, even a bowl of instant noodles can be made into a feast. With such a mouth, the older you get, the more trouble you get. Seeing Suzanne busy in the kitchen, Bibi Dong didn't bother to pay attention to him. With his strength, there was no problem if he didn't eat, so she ate silently by herself. 5 minutes later, Bibi Dong looked at the food she was eating, and then smelled the aroma emanating from Suzanne's bowl, and suddenly felt that her food no longer tasted good. Gillo, it smells really good. The corners of her mouth moved slightly, and Bibi Dong swallowed subconsciously. If you want to eat it, make it yourself. Don't make me look like your servant. Seeing Bibi Dong staring at her eagerly, Suzanne threw a bucket of instant noodles at Bibi Dong, feeling annoyed. Seeing the barrel surface on the table, Bibi Dong fell into a dilemma between heaven and man. After thinking about it, Bibi Dong still shook her head. No, the food I cooked is quite delicious. If she accepted it, wouldn't it mean that the food she cooked was indeed unpalatable? She spent so much effort in vain. She didn't want to lose face. Suzanne, then you should eat your own. Don't stare at it. To its dear little lolly. After watching Suzanne finish eating and leave, Bibi Dong began to pack everything, and she also put away the unopened bucket of instant noodles without leaving a trace. Boom. Suddenly, a strong pressure came, and Bibi Dong's expression suddenly changed. Feeling that her steps were as heavy as a mountain, as if she was about to kneel down in the next moment, Bibi Dong suddenly turned back and looked at Suzanne, starting. From today, you will have to practice and live under such pressure every day. After a month, the pressure will continue to increase. Fidgeting with his mobile phone, Suzanne reminded him casually, but to Bibi Dong's ears, it was like the sound of nature. But the corners of her mouth raised, and a surprised smile appeared on Bibi Dong's face. Her eyes were as pure as an angel's, without any impurities. Chapter 265. Does the three senses follow the five senses? Half a month has passed, and Bibi Dong is still undergoing stress training. From being so exhausted that she could only wake up at noon the next day, she gradually adapted to survive under this pressure. This trick was naturally learned by Suzanne from Poseidon Island. This is what is tested in the Poseidon examination. It is obviously the result of long-term experiments. How can it be done without learning from it? Besides, Bibi Dong will also take the Xue Qinghe test in the future. There will definitely be a project about physical fitness in the future, so it would be good for her to adapt in advance. He didn't show the time-honored things like martial arts, as it would have been too easy for him to reveal his identity. Judging from the enthusiasm of Bibi Dong's auction, it is obvious that I have not given it to her now. Alas, seeing that Bibi Dong was too tired to move again, Suzanne was helpless and had to prepare meals by herself, including some porridge. Although meat can quickly restore physical strength after strenuous exercise, it is better to eat something light to avoid continuing to burden the body. After recovery, it is better to eat some high-calorie foods. Can you still move? Looking at Bibi Dong lying on the bed, Suzanne asked with a calm expression on his face. Smiling bitterly, Bibi Dong stubbornly tried to get up, but her body refused to obey her orders at all. Even when I spoke, my throat felt heavy, so I had no choice but to shake my head. Alas, Xian also sighed, and then brought over a bowl of lean meat soup. Eat. A little holding a spoon, and approaching Bibi Dong, Suzanne seemed to be taking care of a sick patient, with an extremely kind expression. MMP, I was an uncle before, why am I now licking son-in-law? Although she wanted to curse in her heart, Suzanne was helpless. He couldn't just leave her alone. He didn't understand respecting the elderly and caring for the young. So, here comes a serious question. Is he respecting the elders or loving the young? Seeing Suzanne taking such good care of herself, Bibi Dong felt warm inside. As an orphan since childhood, she has experienced too many hardships, and she has never been cared for so considerately. Her eyes were slightly red, Bibi Dong's pink lips were slightly opened, and she let Suzanne feed her. Don't think too much, I just need a maid by my side. Seeing Bibi Dong's moved look, Suzanne felt a chill in her heart and quickly reminded her. If something happens suddenly, and she wants to make a promise or something, will he still be alive when he goes back? Although Bibi Dong is indeed beautiful, he is not the kind of person who follows his facial features. Even if you beat him to death, you can't be worse than a beast. Hearing what Suzanne said, Bibi Dong smiled instead of getting angry, her eyes sparkling, as if the Milky Way was flowing. Suzanne, the look in your eyes makes me panic for no reason. He took good care of Bibi Dong, while Suzanne was busy with his own affairs. For example, 17 cards. How to arrange them to get the maximum profit. Break through the defense lines and fight against crystal attacks from high-tech civilization under the protection of your own flesh and blood equipment. When you are living on a deserted island, how do you use the things you pick up to annihilate the enemies one by one? He had no choice, and he didn't know what he should do now. I'm here purely to gain a sense of presence. I will go back when the time is up. For the time being, just be a Buddhist salted fish. Time flies by, and 3 months have passed in the blink of an eye. Bibi Dong has made rapid progress, and has become accustomed to pressure training. Even if it is sulking level pressure, she can face it calmly. Although this does not represent absolute strength, she has already surpassed the sulking in terms of physical limits, perseverance, etc. If it weren't for the sulking's 5th soul skill being a 10,000-year soul skill, there would be a huge gap in strength between the soul sect and the soul king point if it were an ordinary 1000-year soul skill. With the same amount of soul power, a soul king with one more soul skill would not be her opponent. And Bibi Dong's soul power has also reached level 44, which is 2 levels higher than 3 months ago. Children from poor families can indeed endure hardship. Suzanne clearly saw this from Bibi Dong. Instead of continuing to teach her soul master knowledge, she has already learned what she needs to learn, and the rest should be actual combat. Continue to practice in the soul fighting arena, and come back with at least a golden soul fighting badge. Suzanne ordered Point as his disciple. How could Bibi Dong be weaker than others? Doesn't that mean he is incompetent? The golden soul fighting badge requires 10,000 points. Bibi Dong already has more than 5,500 points, so it is not difficult to get it. Good. Without any hesitation, Bibi Dong agreed directly. As a graceful figure stepped into the Hajandaz's soul fighting arena, an even more intense spirit fighting craze rolled in. Bibi Dong, the owner of the silver fighting soul badge. After 3 months, she is back again. The first game, 3 minutes, win. The second game, 2 minutes, crushing. Even though there was only one chance to fight souls a day, Bibi Dong won all the one-on-one soul battles for half a month. Moreover, every battle was a one-sided suppression. Even when facing a level 48 opponent. The soul fighting arena needs to make profits. In addition to tickets, the more important thing is the income from gambling. Bibi Dong was able to win consecutive battles with such ease. The chances of winning the gambling game were obvious, and the excitement and income were completely out of proportion. In the end, the Great Fighting Spirit Arena came up with a way to not bet on winning or losing, but bet on the fighting time. The Fighting Spirit Arena also found Bibi Dong, and they cooperated further. After all, time can be controlled by her, so extending or shortening it is not a problem. Manager Xian, I think you are mistaken. I came to the soul fighting arena just to train myself, and I will not agree to such a dirty proposal. Looking at the pot-bellied man in front of her, Bibi Dong's eyes were full of contempt and she refused coldly. Seeing Bibi Dong being so rude, Xian was not angry at all. The businessman's interests came first, and he continued to persuade with a smile. Of course training is training, but it doesn't hurt to earn tens of thousands more gold coins. Miss Bibi Dong, why don't you think about it again? Manager Xian, you don't have to say it anymore. I won't agree to it. Bibi Dong refused without hesitation. As she spoke, she glanced at the windless flowers on the side, feeling particularly at ease. Seeing Bibi Dong being so decisive, a cold light suddenly flashed in Xian's eyes. Anyone who dares not to show off to the fighting spirit scene will not live long. Especially you, a yellow-haired girl with no background. In this case, I can only wish Miss Bibi Dong good luck in her cultivation. The cold light in his eyes was quickly concealed by him. Xian smiled slightly and didn't seem to care. Farewell, Bibi. Dong's face remained calm, and she left here directly as she spoke. Watching Bibi Dong leave, Xian's expression suddenly turned ferocious at a speed visible to the naked eye, as dark as purgatory. Ren Wenxi, give me that girl. Boom. Before Xian finished speaking, a figure appeared like a ghost and fell from the air with a bang. As his body trembled, blood gurgled from his mouth like a fountain. Suddenly, the atmosphere at the scene solidified. Chapter 266 Bibi Dong vs. Hey Ocean Hammer. Hajandaz's Grand Soul Fighting Arena, the first soul fighting arena. The fiery atmosphere roared like a tsunami, and the fanatical atmosphere impacted everyone's heart, making people unable to help but want to roar at the top of their lungs. Tell me, who will win this game? Who knows? Neither of them is easy to mess with, but I'm more optimistic about the Clear Sky Hammer martial spirit. He is a genius from the Clear Sky sect. I don't think so. The two of them are currently fighting fiercely, and the outcome is not certain yet. Everyone stared at the two people on the soul fighting stage, not daring to miss any moment. On the soul fighting stage, a man and a woman were fighting fiercely, with roars and dazzling soul skills and sparks flying everywhere. From the explosive sound of the hammer swinging, you can feel its terror. The woman is none other than Bibi Dong. The man, a young man about 18 years old, looks decent and honest, not very outstanding. Although the muscle lines on his body look smooth, they are actually very strong. He wields the clear sky hammer vigorously, and streams of black light erupt from the clear sky hammer, ripping in the air. The man's name is Tanglin. Like Bibidang, he is also a soul sect, and his soul power has reached level 47. Facing Tanglin's attack, Bibidang could only take ordinary chances from the defender. Her hands turned into spear-like spider tentacles, which were swimming on the spider legs of her lower body. Even Tanglin had a hard time hitting him. The Haoshan hammer is indeed very strong, but as one's cultivation level increases, the weight of the Haoshan hammer will also increase. According to Tanglin's 4th ring soul sect, the Haoshan hammer should weigh around 800 kilograms. Original text, titled Douluo, Elder of the Haoshan sect, the non-martial soul true body possesses a 5000 jin Haoshan hammer. Even if the clear sky hammer is used for a long time, its weight will still affect the soul master's speed point. It can be clearly seen that Bibidang has the advantage in speed point, seeing that Bibidang kept avoiding him. Tanglin couldn't help but feel anxious. Boom. The 3rd soul ring on the clear sky hammer suddenly lit up. Tanglin bent his right foot slightly, then used his strength to leap high into the air. Black light gathered on the clear sky hammer, and following the force of gravity, Tanglin used both hands to slam it down in the direction of Bibidang. Aha! Seeing Tanglin's sudden attack, Bibidang's eyes narrowed, and she quickly moved to avoid it. At the same time, Bibidang was also wary in her heart. The opponent knew that he could not attack her, but he still spent so much soul power. Could it be that there is some conspiracy? Bibidang's face condensed slightly, but then she became determined. She looked at the clear sky hammer falling from the sky and acted calmly. In this battle, she can only win. Boom. No surprise, Bibidang dodged, and the clear sky hammer also hit hard. The terrifying power was released from the clear sky hammer, causing a tremor in the spirit fighting arena. Aha! Strong black light sputtered in all directions, and Bibidang's expression changed as he felt the situation around his body. It seems that you have to resist a little harder, apprentice. Suzanne couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the changes on the soul fighting stage. The clear sky hammer, the first power attack weapon spirit, is naturally extraordinary in power. However, not everyone takes the extreme power route like Tang Heo. Is extreme strength bad? Good indeed. With one blow, the power of the clear sky hammer can completely explode, and few people can truly resist it. Just like Tang Heo can challenge a titled Douluo in contrapoint, but the clear sky hammer does not just follow the pure strength route. Just like Tang Chen takes the skill route, a balanced flow is the best choice for the soul master. The surrounding air was instantly dispersed by the black light of the clear sky hammer, and a vacuum zone instantly formed in the soul fighting platform. Suddenly, the black light began to shrink from all sides, and the strong suction force centered on the clear sky hammer prevented Bibidang from moving quickly, and moved towards Tanglin. Crack. The spider spear on Bibidang's arm was inserted into the soul fighting platform, and the 8 sharp claws on her legs were slightly tilted backward to resist the squeezing feeling. Seeing that Bibidang's movement was restricted, Tanglin didn't hesitate at all, and rushed over at full speed, the clear sky hammer in his hand shining black. Spider spear stab. Tanglin was attacking in front of her, but Bibidang didn't panic. Her face remained as calm as water. The first soul ring on the sole of her foot lit up, and purple-black spears gathered around her, with their tips pointing directly at Tanglin. Call out. The 8 spears were like stray arrows, heading straight towards Tanglin. The latter's steps were slightly delayed, and he quickly waved the clear sky hammer to resist. The spears were either knocked away or shattered by the clear sky hammer's attack, but it didn't seem to have any effect on Tanglin at all. Seeing this scene, Bibidang raised the corners of her mouth slightly. Seeing that Tanglin's pulling force still hadn't dissipated, the 3rd soul ring on the sole of her foot lit up again. Purple-black cobwebs spit out and headed straight for Tanglin. When they reached the sky, the cobwebs had already dispersed, and a cobweb with a diameter of 3 meters covered the ground. Seeing that the spider web was actually accelerating under his traction, making it inevitable to avoid it, Tanglin seemed to realize that he had done something stupid and couldn't help but regretted. Call out. Tanglin directly threw the clear sky hammer, flying the cobwebs away, and then opened a big hole. Bibidang also struggled to get rid of the attraction from the clear sky hammer, and everything seemed to be back to its original state. But this time, Bibidang did not choose to escape, but faced him head on, just in time. Seeing that Bibidang was no longer hiding, Tang Lin was overjoyed and rushed forward with the clear sky hammer. Point boom. When the hammer was blasted out, what Tang Lin didn't expect was that Bibi Dong blocked it with both spears and actually carried it head on. Point footsteps. No step back. How can it be? Seeing this scene, Tang Lin was stunned and looked at Bibi Dong in disbelief. Point the corner of her eyes slightly, and Bibi Dong sneered. Do you think I'm really just avoiding it? You, Tang Lin's eyes widened with inexplicable mouth panic, and he suddenly seemed to notice something. He lowered his head and looked at his arm. Point I saw tiny purple black air currents surging inside his body, heading toward his heart like nematodes. When did you get poisoned? The sudden appearance of the poison caught Tang Lin off guard. Just when he was about to use his soul power to resist, Bibi Dong's voice also rang out. The poison has penetrated deeply into your blood. I won this competition. Boom. The fourth soul ring lit up, and spikes up to 1 meter long poured out from her body, wrapping her like a hedgehog. Point this time, Bibi Dong directly launched a counterattack. Tang Lin, who had been poisoned by Bibi Dong's toxin, only felt numbness in his arms, and his consciousness began to gradually blur. However, despite this, he still stubbornly resisted Bibi Dong for 5 minutes before slowly falling down. Seeing Tang Lin fall, Bibi Dong finally showed a relieved smile on her face. This was the first time she faced the clear sky hammer spirit. The opponent was indeed very powerful, especially the power of the clear sky hammer. Her hands were swollen and painful at the moment. However, compared to pressure training, she was already doing extremely well at the moment. Chapter 267 to Rhodes, your choice. The first soul fighting field. The first soul fighting. Bibi Dong wins. As the referee's voice fell, the scene suddenly went into an uproar, followed by fan-like shouts. Bibi Dong had become accustomed to this, and looked at the observation deck of the auditorium. Looking up, she didn't see Suzanne and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Ignoring the cheers and encouragement at the scene, Bibi Dong quickly chased after him. Seeing the man in white clothes and white hair on the street, Bibi Dong immediately chased after him. Teacher, why did you leave without saying a word? Bibi Dong stepped back and stared at Suzanne angrily. If I don't leave, I won't be able to wipe your ass later. Xian rolled his eyes at Bibi Dong angrily, and the latter's face suddenly turned red after hearing Meng Lang's words. No way, the poison I put was concentrated on the stage. It won't. Bibi Dong wanted to defend herself, but when she saw Suzanne glance at her, her voice suddenly became softer and softer, and she was too embarrassed to continue speaking. The poison was indeed concentrated on the soul fighting platform, and was absorbed by Tang Lin's traction. However, poison will spread if it is spread in the air. Although it won't kill anyone, it is perfectly normal to cause diarrhea and vomiting in some people who are close to it. Point. If he stayed a little longer, he might have to go get her again. Shaking Suzanne's arm, Bibi Dong said coquettishly, isn't it because I didn't let him notice that I turned the poison into gas? Seeing Bibi Dong's cooing little mouth and her cute look, Suzanne trembled in her heart and quickly retracted her hand. Point MMP, mother-in-law, you have to respect yourself. As a girl, you should be more upright and noble, and don't act like a jerk. Suzanne reminded with an unnatural look on his face. Point if this continues, I won't survive more than 3 episodes. Can't afford to offend. Can't afford to offend in order not to be greatly blocked by the author. It would be better for me to disappear for a while. Point you are a grown up. I'm not shy. Why do you still care about this? Seeing the corners of Suzanne's mouth twitching subconsciously, and the dense black lines on her forehead, Bibi Dong's face was filled with astonishment. Didn't he just hold hands? Why make such a fuss, Miss Bibi Dong? Would you like to join the spirit hall? Just when Bibi Dong was about to tease the old man in front of her, an easygoing old voice rang out. Point they saw an old man wearing red robes with red gems embedded on his chest appearing in front of them. Point the old man's face was covered with wrinkles, like a piece of rotten wood, and the deep ravines on his face looked like cuts. The old man didn't have any arrogance, but was very easygoing and kind. Like the grandpa next door, this was not the first time Suzanne had seen the old man in front of him. He appeared 3 times in total during Bibi Dong's soul fight, and each time he sat in the front row and observed Bibi Dong's battle. It is estimated that he took a fancy to Bibi Dong's talent. And Tang Lin's defeat was the last straw that broke the camel's back. To be able to defeat the disciples of the Haoshan sect. Bibi Dong is definitely extremely talented. If she is not recruited into the spirit hall, it will definitely be a loss for the spirit hall. I need to think about this. Looking at the old man in red, Bibi Dong hesitated slightly and couldn't help but look at Suzanne. Seeing everything in his eyes, the old and smart Gwyn couldn't help but look at Suzanne, his eyes revealing curiosity. According to the intelligence, Bibi Dong has no relatives. However, since the other party can influence Bibi Dong's opinions, he must work hard to fight for it. I am Cardinal Gwyn, the main hall of the Wuhan Hall in Harjandaz's city. I wonder who you are? Gwyn raised his hand slightly and asked, although he did not bow. Considering his status, being able to do so was considered the greatest respect. Today's Wuhan temple is not as imposing and powerful as the Wuhan temple of later generations. Most of the people who joined were thinking about the future of the Soul Master world. In short, the current Wuhan palace is more like an association rather than a centralized force in the true sense. But soon, Wuhan palace will change. Khan Zhenji has become the pope, and he will gradually concentrate the power of the Wuhan palace to slowly overwhelm the Haoshan sect. And Bibi Dong's ascension to the Pope will be the beginning of Wuhan Palace's transcendent status, becoming a dominant family in the true sense. He's just a mountain villager. Shaking his head, Suzanne was thinking about other things. With Gwyn's appearance, he needed to think about Bibi Dong's future. Your Majesty is joking. After hearing this, Gwyn didn't pay attention, but looked at Suzanne even more highly. There are not many people in this Harjandaz's city who are able to deal with themselves calmly. What surprised him even more was that he couldn't detect any soul power fluctuations from the other party. Could the person that Bibi Dong respected so much be an ordinary person? To be honest, he didn't believe it. Turning his eyes to Bibi Dong, Gwyn had friendly eyes and a happy smile on his face. If Miss Bibi Dong has thought about it, she can come to me at any time. As if he felt that sincerity was not enough, Gwyn took out another token from his sleeve, with only 3 patterns on it. This is the Wuhan Palace's warrant. If Miss Bibi Dong has anything to do, she can also come to the old man and me. With a slight smile, Gwyn did not continue to pester, raised his hand slightly towards Suzanne, and left slowly. This warrant is the 4th level. Although it cannot enter the soul hunting forest, where there are 10,000-year soul beasts, it is his greatest sincerity. Seeing Bibi Dong looking at the token curiously, Suzanne couldn't help but explain. The Harjandaz's spirit hall is just the main hall, lower than the Pope Hall and the Holy Temple. Even Gwyn only has a 3rd class token point. If this 4th level token were exchanged for other lower level cities, it would be enough to dominate. Teacher, do you think I should join the spirit hall? Bibi Dong blinked her big eyes, looking like a good baby who listens to your opinions, which made Suzanne just want to hit someone. You can go if you want. Why do you ask me? If I urge you to go, if a tragedy happens, won't it be all my fault? But if I don't let you go, will Xian Rink's still exist? Suzanne shuddered at the thought of a comfortable pillow disappearing. Are you here to save people or to kill people? Without a direct response, Suzanne looked up at the night sky and murmured to himself, I've been out for so long, it's time for me to go back and rest. Bibi Dong? Rest? Why are you saying this all of a sudden? Noticing the expression on Suzanne's face, Bibi Dong seemed to understand something, and her expression suddenly changed. Holding Suzanne's arm tightly, Bibi Dong asked anxiously, Teacher, are you planning to leave? Chapter 268. All banquets in the world come to an end. Seeing Bibi Dong staring at her pitifully, Suzanne also felt a little uncomfortable inside. At least 3 of them together. After all, I have been a teacher for 3 months, and I still have the feeling of master and disciple. This parting is really hard to bear. But if you have to go, you still have to go. He couldn't stay with Bibi Dong forever and wait for her to grow up before turning things around. That would be too time consuming. It's okay to stay here for a while, but if he really wants to stay here for 10 or 8 years, he will be driven crazy. There is no such thing as a banquet that lasts forever. There will always be a day of separation, and you don't have to do this. Suzanne comforted Bibi Dong. After touching her head, Bibi Dong bit her pink lips and looked at Suzanne with hopeful eyes. Can you not leave? His voice was trembling, extremely afraid that Suzanne would refuse, but she seemed to know how it would end, and all she could do was to sincerely try to stay. She also knew that Suzanne could not always stay with her, not even as a teacher. I have been in this continent for a long time, and this clone cannot sustain it. If I don't fall asleep, I may not exist in a while. Suzanne wiped the tears from the corners of Bibi Dong's eyes. Although Suzanne was smiling, his face was full of deep bitterness. Alright. This is him acting. He had already thought of the reason for sleeping, so that Bibi Dong could feel at ease. You can't watch me die and still keep me by your side, right, clone? Startled by her inner thoughts, Bibi Dong stared at Suzanne in disbelief. He is already so powerful, but he is still a clone. And, are there other worlds? Is it possible that there really are other worlds? Well, my body is in another world, and if this clone doesn't fall asleep, it may not be able to survive for a year. Facing Bibi Dong's shocked gaze, Suzanne nodded slowly, and the atmosphere suddenly became silent. The two walked forward slowly, neither of them speaking. Choking silently, Bibi Dong's tears couldn't stop dripping from her face. Finally, I met a relative and now I have to separate. Will she be alone again from now on? Afraid that Suzanne would see it, Bibi Dong quickly wiped her tears, but the redness at the corners of her eyes betrayed her. Bibi Dong's eyes were sad and she said, in the future, will I be able to see you again, teacher? After waking up, if I still remember you, I will naturally see you. Suzanne replied sincerely. He was also laying the groundwork for more than 30 years later. Otherwise, if he saw Bibi Dong, but didn't recognize him, he would be really exposed. So, maybe you will forget me? Bibi Dong gritted her silver teeth and asked, maybe. Suzanne blinked and said with an innocent face. Hearing this, Bibi Dong's eyes widened, and he suddenly grabbed Suzanne's wrist and bit it down. Hiss. It hurts. It hurts. Please let go, Sue. Xian's face turned pale, and he clenched his teeth in excruciating pain, and subconsciously patted Bibi Dong's head. This way, you won't forget me in the future. Bibi Dong wiped the blood on the corner of her mouth, and said with a silly look on her face. There was no response. Suzanne looked at the blood marks on his wrist, his face as dark as ink. Woohoo, you are indeed a mother and daughter. You are both born in the year of dog, and you bite at every turn. He was bitten on the shoulder twice by Xian Ringsu. Last time, he almost caused Xian Ringsu to lose his life. Women are good at this. You must not deceive me. With a sudden tremor in her heart, Bibi Dong also realized that she had gone too far and said weakly, shall I bandage it for you? No. Hearing this, Suzanne shook his head, and a snow-white light emerged from the wound. The wound healed quickly and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Even the tooth marks disappeared without a trace. Bibi Dong, staring at Suzanne's arm. Bibi Dong gritted her teeth and stretched out her arm again. Damn it, you're still here, Sue. Xian's face turned red as she pressed Bibi Dong's head firmly. He never expected that Bibi Dong was not only a ruthless person, but also a wolf killer. Very meow. One bite is enough. You come here twice. Who asked you to erase the mark too? Can't you think of other ways? What else can you do besides biting people? Oh, that's right. Unable to resist Suzanne, Bibi Dong smiled and let go of his arm. With a simple and awkward smile on her face. Suzanne, I have a saying that I don't know if I should say it or not. Taking a deep breath, Suzanne held back his rioting little universe, glared at Bibi Dong angrily, and then flew away. He swore that he would stay away from this wolf me in the future. He really couldn't afford to offend him. Suzanne returned to the hut in the forest first, and Bibi Dong came back after a while. Seeing Suzanne preparing meals, she did not go over to disturb him, but went back to her room to take care of her own business. Under the starlight and moonlight in the night sky, Suzanne carefully prepared the last supper without any smile on his face. What he hates most is this kind of separation. Donja, come out for a moment. After a while, Suzanne took out the glutinous rice balls and placed them on the stone table. Suzanne was slightly startled by the subconscious address of Donja and felt extremely strange in his heart. If you shout yourself, when you go back, you will be hacked to death in minutes. Creak. There was a heartbreaking sound of opening the door, and Bibi Dong slowly walked out. This is a puppet I carved myself. Teacher, please take it with you. Handing a puppet to Suzanne, Bibi Dong said without doubt. Can't you make yourself look better? Seeing the puppet in his hand, Suzanne's mouth twitched sharply, and he made a speechless suggestion. If it weren't for the word Bibi Dong on it, he would have thought it was a mushroom. This is it. Seeing Bibi Dong staring at her expressionlessly and licking the corner of her mouth slightly, Suzanne was shocked and waved her hand quickly. Seeing this, Bibi Dong smiled with satisfaction, then sat down on her own and ate the glutinous rice balls made by Suzanne. Although glutinous rice balls are sweet, they are so sweet that they make you cry. If they have a taste, they are also 3/4 of bitter. Seeing the tears streaming down Bibi Dong's face, Suzanne sighed deeply in her heart, but did not open her mouth to destroy her long simmering emotions. Late at night, in the dead of night, seeing Bibi Dong sleeping, Suzanne left her a defensive formation and a titled Douluo cultivation experience card, and then left here. 30 years later. Are you coming back now? Seeing Suzanne suddenly appeared, Xian Mingsu blinked her eyes, completely confused. This is really a one-stop trip, without any gaps. What are you doing? Put me down. There was no response. As Xian Mingsu screamed, Suzanne picked her up and ran towards the bedroom with extremely hot eyes. After 3 months of being a monk, he was finally able to eat meat. Chapter 269. Bibi Dong's idea. On the bed, just when Suzanne was about to take further action, Xian Mingsu suddenly pinched his ear. Suddenly, Suzanne collapsed. Hi, wife, it hurts. Please be gentle. Suzanne quickly begged for mercy as she firmly held Xian Mingsu's arm to prevent him from exerting any force. He looked so weak and painful that he almost had to kneel down like a durian. Tell me, where does the smell of rouge on your body come from, Xian? Mingsu's face turned cold, her teeth bared, and she looked a bit like a shrew. Suzanne suddenly cried out that she was wronged. What rouge smell? I have been a monk for 3 months. Why are you so anxious before you see me coming back? I don't miss you. Xian Mingsu, pooh. You are missing me. You are clearly coveting my body. Shameless. Thinking of Suzanne's self-eating look just now, Xian Mingsu's face turned hot, and she couldn't help but believe him. Xian Mingsu loosened her grip slightly, but remained unyielding. Then tell me, why is the smell of rouge on your body coming? Why can't I smell the rouge smell? With a slightly stunned look on his face, Suzanne put his hand to the tip of his nose and sniffed, but did not find any peculiar smell. Xian Mingsu said angrily, how dare you say no? Let Xian Meng come out and smell it. He is a soul beast with a good nose. Hearing this, Suzanne seemed to understand something and looked at her with longing eyes. Speaking of my wife, I taught my mother-in-law for 3 months. Isn't it normal for her to smell a little like rouge? Is it my mother's? Xian Mingsu said doubtfully. How about you ask your mother-in-law to see if it's true? Suzanne said numbly, letting go of Xian Mingsu's hand angrily. I missed him for 3 months, keeping his integrity as pure as jade, but being wronged as soon as he returned home. It was so difficult for him. Seeing that Suzanne's eyes didn't dodge at all, Xian Mingsu immediately believed Suzanne. But when she thought about her mother staying with him for 3 months, Xian Mingsu's heart suddenly lifted. With a cold light in her eyes, Xian Mingsu showed a death-like smile. It's okay between you and her, right? Xian Mingsu is very clear about how beautiful Bibi Dong is. Although she is old now and looks a bit vicissitudes of life, her charm is still the same. If she were younger, her beauty would be unparalleled. Especially, this guy's also very lustful. Who do you think I am? Although I'm a bit shameless, I also know the word shame. Hearing this, Suzanne couldn't help but feel angry and directly pressed Xian Mingsu on the bed with a serious face. Xian Mingsu, if you knew shame, your hands wouldn't move around now. Alas, unable to help but lose interest, Suzanne slowly retracted his palm and lay down on the bed. He had no interest in sex now. Before returning from time travel, it was still late at night, so he might as well be jet lag. Well, seeing Suzanne's sudden change, Kan Rinxu was startled and looked at Suzanne, who was sleeping soundly with confusion in her eyes. Weren't you acting like a wolf just now? Why are you suddenly so honest now? After thinking about it for a moment, Kan Rinxu understood and couldn't help but feel a little guilty. This guy traveled through time. It was for her mother, and as a wife, she would actually doubt him like that. She really didn't trust her husband too much. It's okay if I'm wrong. How about I give you a shoulder rub? After saying something like begging for mercy, Kan Rinxu climbed onto the bed and obediently kneaded Suzanne. After a while, Kan Rinxu stretched her neck when she saw that Suzanne had no reaction at all. Seeing Suzanne lying comfortably with her eyebrows furrowed together, it was clear that her anger had not subsided, and Kan Rinxu was also helpless. He raised his head and looked at the time. It was only early in the morning, and he had just gotten up. He couldn't keep messing around with this guy again, could he? After calming down, Kan Rinxu said with some shame, "How about I sleep with you?" Before she finished speaking, her face turned red. She was so charming and ashamed. However, Suzanne still didn't react at all. Seeing that she was like this, Suzanne still didn't react at all, and Kan Rinxu's shy expression suddenly froze. Doesn't this guy like to use himself as a pillow and sleep with him in his arms? Failure, depression, helplessness, all kinds of emotions were mixed in Kan Rinxu's heart. Pouting her little lips, Kan Rinxu left the room without anger. After a while, when she appeared again, she had changed her clothes: the white short top, a plaid skirt that didn't reach the knees, and a small tie hanging down from Kansei's lapel. Against the backdrop of the JK uniform, Kan Rinxu's snow white skin is looming, and her innocent and cute face is infinitely charming, as if she has stepped out of a cartoon. Lying on the bed, Kan Rinxu whispered into Suzanne's ear. Just when she thought Suzanne would stand up impatiently, she didn't expect that he still didn't make any movement. Kan Rinxu, no way, are you really asleep? Her face suddenly stiffened. Kan Rinxu came directly opposite Suzanne, and when she saw his steady and smooth breathing, she immediately knew the answer. Bah, what are you thinking? Thinking that she was here begging for mercy in every possible way just now, even wearing such revealing clothes? Kan Rinxu was so embarrassed that she almost cried. Chest heaving violently, Kan Rinxu hurriedly ran out of the room, fearing that Suzanne would wake up suddenly. Just when she breathed a sigh of relief, Bibi Dong's figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Bibi Dong's mouth twitched sharply when she saw Kan Rinxu's cute and revealing outfit. Even her navel was exposed when her top was barely covering her belly. Looking along the crack of the door behind Kan Rinxu, where he could see a figure sleeping soundly, and Bibi Dong's face couldn't help but turn a little red. Mother, why are you here? Kan Rinxu closed the door subconsciously, with embarrassment on her face. Bibi Dong's face turned red, and she had to remind her sternly, Zua, your husband is still young. There are some things that you cannot force him to do recklessly. You are stronger than him, and can easily hurt his body. Kan Rinxu, mother, don't get me wrong, it's not. With her face flushed, Kan Rinxu felt as if her tail had been stepped on, and she hurriedly wanted to defend herself, but Bibi Dong interrupted her first. Okay, I won't talk too much about you and your wife, mother, Bibi Dong said kindly. Kan Rinxu, you talk too much, this is not what you think at all. Seeing Kan Rinxu's depressed and shy look, Bibi Dong did not continue speaking, and quickly changed the topic. You have now begun the assessment for the rank of angel god, right? While speaking, Bibi Dong couldn't help but glance at Kan Rinxu's forehead, and when she saw the serif pattern, she knew it in her heart. Kan Rinxu, no, the topic just now is not over yet. Why did you change the topic? You, sir, wouldn't you just assume that I was the one who tortured him? Woohoo, I'm really more unjust than I. Chapter 270. You said you don't know martial arts. Oh, at noon, Suzanne woke up naturally, straightened his hands, and stretched his waist, allowing his muscles to return to normal. This wife is too ignorant. Feeling pain in her body, Suzanne opened her eyes with difficulty and glanced down. Seeing that she was still wearing regular clothes, She patted the quilt helplessly. Point isn't it said that women are considerate, but when they see themselves falling asleep, they don't even help them take off their clothes. I have to help you take off your clothes every night. It's really heartless feeling uncomfortable all over. Suzanne yawned, feeling half asleep, and planning to go to the bathroom to take a bath to calm down a little. Holding onto the wall, Suzanne opened the door with a click. With sleepy eyes, she dragged her body swaying from side to side towards the bathroom. Seeing Suzanne's confused look, both Xian Ringsu and Bibi Dan couldn't help laughing, and the former even laughed out loud. Point startled by the laughter, Suzanne turned around and opened her eyes slightly. Seeing that Bibi Dan and Xue were there, she couldn't help but wave her hands. Xue and Onja, you are both here. I'll take a shower first. Oh, yawning, like a blind man exploring the road, Suzanne was half asleep and half awake, and came to the bathhouse behind the palace. Oh, the warm and refreshing pool water washed her body, and Suzanne suddenly felt refreshed all over her body. The sleepiness under her body was also washed away, and her eyes and mind became clear for a while. Yo-yo, let's play a song. Holding the handkerchief and pulling it from side to side, Suzanne felt as if he was about to fly into the sky while listening to the cheerful melody. The wind blows and the sand butterfly falls in love with the flower through the ages, like the moon and the water. The love fascinates the flowers in the mirror. Ahem. Bamboo fence, wood, la la. On one side they were bathing and singing, but on the other side the atmosphere was very solid. Xian Ringsu glanced over and saw Bibi Dan's emotions agitated and her chest rising and falling violently, and felt something was not right. Xian Ringsu quickly smoothed things over and said, ahem. My husband was awake just now and was talking nonsense. He is used to joking. Mother, please don't mind. Joke. Bibi Dan glanced at Xian Ringsu, her brows filled with frost. Have you ever seen someone jokingly calling her mother-in-law by her nickname? Wow. After saying that, Bibi Dan didn't give Xian Ringsu any chance. She stood up and headed towards the bathroom. Point this tone, she would never forget it even to death. Like the moon and the water, fascinated by the flowers in the mirror, the bamboo fence, la la la, arch. Fuck, Suzanne was in high spirits when she suddenly saw Bibi Dan walking in. She was so frightened that her liver nearly burst out. Suzanne lowered his eyes slightly and glanced at his current state. Rogue. Quickly wrapping herself in her clothes, Suzanne ran out of the bathroom and plunged into the bedroom. He looked panicked, as if some wild beast was chasing him. Even when he bumped into Xian Ringsu, Suzanne ignored him. Driven by adrenaline, he couldn't stop. Fu's chest rose and fell violently, and Suzanne wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Damn it, it was so scary just now. I don't know what kind of medicine Bibi Dan took, or if she forgot to take medicine. She knew she was in the bathtub, but she still rushed in. It doesn't matter, forget it. You won't suffer any loss after watching it, but you are the mother-in-law, so you must know how to respect yourself. Full of energy, Suzanne was sober at this moment that he could no longer be sober. Feeling the wet water sticking to his clothes, he quickly took them off and put on a new set of clothes. Bang bang. Who? Just as she was arranging her clothes in front of the mirror, there was a knock on the door. Suzanne raised an eyebrow and asked, It is a short word, but it is so powerful that it even contains a chill. Suzanne, damn it. You really took the wrong medicine today. You shouldn't avoid suspicion at this time. Suzanne said hurriedly, Mother-in-law, just tell Xue if you have something to do. I'm a little inconvenient now. While talking, Suzanne quickly tied up his shirt, fearing that Bibi Dan would break in. As expected, Suzanne's worries were justified. Inconvenient. When Bibi Dan heard this, he kicked the door directly. There was a roar, and the door and the wall collided violently, as if there was an earthquake. The corner of Suzanne's mouth twitched sharply. Mother-in-law, we have something to discuss, so there's no need to get so angry. Seeing Bibi Dan's expressionless look, Suzanne said with a smile. Tap tap tap. The heels of her shoes clicked on the ground, making a crisp sound, and Bibi Dan walked up slowly. What? Did you call me just now? Staring at Suzanne, Bibi Dan's eyes were filled with suspicion as she looked at the face in front of her, and she had the urge to tear off the disguise. Of course it's my mother-in-law. What's wrong? Suzanne asked, confused. Why am I listening to someone named Donja? The remaining corners of her narrow phoenix eyes were full of cold light. Bibi Dong gritted her teeth and snorted coldly. Point Suzanne. Donja. Hearing what Bibi Dong said, Suzanne was also stunned. While thinking subconsciously, he was also wondering where he had gone wrong. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't figure out where he got that name. There is no way I can never remember whether I did the things I did when I was confused. Point hearing that Suzanne dared to mention her nickname, Bibi Dong was ashamed and angry, but at the same time she felt very friendly, and she had a vague and shameful impulse to echo her. Ahem. Mother-in-law, you may have heard me wrong. I have always called you mother-in-law. How could I call you Donja? Seeing Bibi Dong staring at her, Suzanne quickly waved his hand. It's impossible even to death to admit this. You mean I heard you wrong? Bibi Dong asked numbly. An invisible pressure of indifference rippled around the two of them. Suzanne nodded. Maybe my mother-in-law misses my grandfather and the others so much that she has auditory hallucinations. Yes, mother, I heard him call you mother-in-law just now. Maybe I heard him wrong. Xian Ringsu also hurriedly helped, for fear that the matter would be exposed and the relationship would be complicated by then. Why do I feel that you are hiding something from me? Bibi Dong said coldly, seeing Xian Ringsu's nervous look. Xian Ringsu quickly calmed down her expression, smiled and waved her hand. No way, it's because you, mother, are overthinking. Yeah? With disbelief on her face, Bibi Dong turned to look at Suzanne. Although both of them said so, she still believed in her own judgment. Point just now, he definitely heard it right. This guy just called himself Donja. With a cold look in her eyes, as if she thought of something, Bibi Dong suddenly stretched out her arm and grabbed Suzanne's arm. The red lips were slightly opened, and Bibi Dong moved quickly, trying to bite it. Suzanne. 3 times in one day, you really treat me as a blood donor station. Fuck. The sting from last night was still vivid in her mind, and Suzanne almost subconsciously held down Bibi Dong's head, preventing her from moving forward at all. And Bibi Dong suddenly stopped and stared at Suzanne. You still said you're not too great? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271. Bibi Dong. I'm confused. His movements and reactions were all the same as those of Taishang's time point. If once could be a coincidence, then these 3 in succession are no longer coincidences. Bibi Dong was already convinced in her heart that this guy was the supreme being, since the supreme being is a clone. With his strength, the art of transformation is not a problem at all. Still want to hide it from her? It's simply wishful thinking. Suzanne, if you don't want to be a detective, you are really underestimating your talent. What to do? How should I come back now? Or is it a showdown? Senior sister, I'm really not a supreme leader. Please stop thinking nonsense. If you think about it again, do I really think I'm a teacher? Suzanne pinched her thigh fiercely and knelt down to Bibi Dong while crying. Point, it's not easy for him to be a good person. Can't you just let me be the boss behind the scenes? In just one night, I was exposed. If I were to be an undercover agent, is it possible that my acting skills have deteriorated? Seeing Suzanne kneeling, Bibi Dong quickly pulled him up. She couldn't bear this kneeling. Bibi Dong sighed. Teacher, if it had been a few days ago, I would have believed you, but now, I won't believe it anymore. After finishing speaking, Bibi Dong firmly shouted, you are the teacher, no need to pretend anymore. Suzanne, I have a saying that I don't know if I should say it or not. Looking at Xian Ringsu, Suzanne took a deep breath and said without any room for refutation, don't call me teacher from now on. I never promised to accept you as a disciple, and all the previous named disciples are invalid. Okay, you win. Now the showdown. You like it, right? Bibi Dong was pleasantly surprised when she saw Suzanne admitted in person, but when she heard what happened later, her expression immediately changed. Why? Bibi Dong was about to ask the reason, but suddenly she seemed to think of something and stopped immediately. Glancing at Xian Ringsu from the corner of her eye, Bibi Dong seemed to know what was going on. Bibi Dong felt very uncomfortable when she thought that Suzanne refused to recognize her as her apprentice for the sake of her daughter. Even the look she looked at Xian Ringsu was no longer gentle, but more hostile. Xian Ringsu, what kind of luck do you have? Looking at Bibi Dong, Suzanne opened his mouth, but finally chose to remain silent. He really didn't know what to call Bibi Dong. None of the three people spoke, and the scene was extremely strange for a time. Suzanne complained, "Look, you insist on making things so embarrassing. It makes everyone feel uncomfortable." If Bibi Dong didn't know this, just dig up the root cause. Everyone could live a good life, and their families would be harmonious and beautiful. That would be great. Point. Well, now, the relationship between the three of them is completely messed up. How can you blame me? Who makes you shameless? Actually, Bibi Dong was immediately furious and glared at Suzanne. As for the last sentence, "I like my daughter," Bibi Dong was too embarrassed to say it. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Bibi Dong never imagined that it would be so embarrassing for master and disciple to meet again. "Come into the room, I have something to tell you." Thinking about her plan, Suzanne took a deep breath and planned to give Bibi Dong a thorough explanation in advance to prevent her from thinking nonsense. Seeing Suzanne's domineering look, Bibi Dong faintly and followed Suzanne into the bedroom. Honestly, seeing Bibi Dong's obedient and timid appearance, Xian Ringsu felt dumbfounded, and her outlook was completely ruined. Is this really his mother? That noble, elegant, cold His Majesty the Pope? Let me go, it's a lie. Seeing that the bedroom door was closed and she was left alone outside, Xian Ringsu had a strange expression on her face. Xian Ringsu leaned slightly closer to the wall, intending to listen to what they were talking about, but unfortunately, Suzanne had already blocked the bedroom space. In the bedroom. Suzanne changed back to the appearance of the Supreme Being and looked at the mature and beautiful Bibi Dong in front of her, feeling very emotional in her heart. If Suzanne hadn't known that he had traveled through time, he would have felt like he was dreaming, having a very long-term dream that spanned decades. Looking at the Taishang, Bibi Dong was filled with excitement, and then muttered dissatisfied, "I knew it would be like this, and you lied to me before." Staring at Bibi Dong with a death gaze, Suzanne said numbly, "Don't lie to you. I almost want to beat you up to vent my anger." She used to be so silly and cute, but now she's more sophisticated than anyone else. Bibi Dong didn't care and smiled. "Then I'll just think you're complimenting me, Suzanne." "No billion." Suzanne took a deep breath and said, "Don't you have anything else to ask me?" As soon as these words came out, Bibi Dong's face darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. The surprise of master-disciple reunion completely faded away. Bibi Dong was silent for a moment and suddenly said, "You know everything, right?" Looking at Suzanne with resentful and complicated eyes, Bibi Dong had a sad smile on her face, tears falling suddenly, and her weak and helpless look was really heartbreaking. "That night, I was there too." Suzanne nodded. As soon as these words came out, Bibi Dong's face suddenly turned pale as white paper. She felt like the world was spinning, and she staggered backwards. Suzanne's figure flashed, and he quickly supported her. "Why?" His hands became claws and tightly grabbed Suzanne's arm. Bibi Dong's eyes were split open, and he roared. Her eyes suddenly turned blood red, and a strong purple-black energy surged out of her body. Blood was faintly visible from her clenched teeth, which showed how angry she was at the moment. "Since the teacher is here, why doesn't he save me?" Bibi Dong couldn't figure out why Suzanne treated her like this. Or is she just a pawn in all this? After suppressing Bibi Dong's evil thoughts, Suzanne looked extremely serious and explained, "Xue is not your and his daughter." Boom. As soon as these words came out, it was no less than 5 thunders hitting the sky. Bibi Dong was stunned and looked at Suzanne in disbelief. How can it be? She is her biological child, and his martial spirit is also the seraphim martial spirit. How could it not be? Bibi Dong was at the peak of her powers, her eyes filled with blood red, swaying Suzanne's arm. "Teacher, you are lying to me, right? Listen to me and tell you slowly." Seeing that Bibi Dong was so excited, Suzanne calmed her down and then began to talk about the plot she had designed. The more she listened, the more incredible Bibi Dong felt. She didn't expect that things were like this point. But teacher, why don't you save me directly? Bibi Dong was furious as she glared at Suzanne. It would have been nice to save me directly, but you deliberately made me pregnant with Xue, and I was still pregnant for 10 months. What's going on? More importantly, her innocence was destroyed so innocently, and she transformed from a young girl into a woman. Thinking of this, Bibi Dong couldn't help but wanted to cry, and looked at Suzanne with eyes full of resentment. Suzanne, that's a good question. I need to think about it. Chapter 272. Spoilers from the protagonist. You and Xue are destined. Upon hearing Bibi Dong's question, the first excuse that flashed through Suzanne's mind was this sentence. As the mantra of the saint who wanted the green lotus the most from the ancient world, the phrase "I have a destiny with Buddhism" is simply the most shameless and plundering quote. However, he is so powerful that others cannot stand in point. But I use this excuse, and the result: 1. He was scolded to death by Bibi Dong. 2. He was beaten to death by Bibi Dong. And 3. He was stared to death by Bibi Dong. In short, he could not escape the word death. Suzanne also began to meditate and organize his thoughts. Not only must he be able to explain that he allowed Bibi Dong to conceive a daughter instead of directly rescuing her, but he must also be able to explain why, as his teacher, he likes Xue. Among them, the most critical question is the following. It seemed that he had implanted angel blood into Bibi Dong's body so that she could give birth to Xian Ringsu just for today. But back then, I seemed to have seen the future, so I did this on purpose. The above is Suzanne's plan for time travel, but it has not been actually implemented yet. With Bibi Dong's IQ, she must have realized that by doing these things, Suzanne saved her, and at the same time, ensured Xue's existence. So much so that now, he can marry her. So, there is cause and effect involved here, and this is also the most difficult to explain. Unless Suzanne said that he traveled through the past and changed Bibi Dong's fate, it would be difficult to explain the current situation. Alas, with a long sigh, Suzanne felt a little headache. He really didn't know how to explain it. This was a dead end. The current plan seems to be all I can do is confess. Suzanne sighed deeply and said, actually, my master has known your future fate for a long time, as well as mine. So I have never wanted to accept you as my disciple. My fate. Bibi Dong's pupils shrank, and she looked at Suzanne in astonishment. Because of what happened that night, you completely went astray and became a Rakshasa god. You wanted to destroy the entire continent, especially the spirit hall, but in the end you ended up dead. And I met Xue Qinghe before I died, replaced him with Xiu and lived again, and finally got entangled with Xue. This is the fate of you and me. I had already predicted it back then, so I was unwilling to accept you as my disciple. After all, our relationship. Seeing that Bibi Dong was completely confused, Suzanne did not continue. If she still didn't understand, then she was not Bibi Dong. In the bedroom, the scene was surprisingly silent. Bibi Dong was dumbfounded, her eyes were distracted, and she didn't know what she was thinking. Suzanne was right. She did want to destroy Wuhan Palace before, but she only recently let go of her hatred. Therefore, what he said is very likely to be true. Will he really have such a fate? After a while, Bibi Dong finally recovered. Bibi Dong had a complicated face. So, in order to save me, you can only come up with this method? Suzanne nodded. You are also a pitiful person. You and I have a master-disciple relationship after we met. I can't just sit back and watch. I just wronged you. Carrying this for so many years also ruined your innocence. Touching Bibi Dong's head, Suzanne's eyes were full of kindness and apology, as if there was nothing he could do. Author, I made up my own story, just to deceive you. Compared to death, I'm very satisfied with the result now. At least I didn't let that beast succeed. Bibi Dong didn't resist as Suzanne touched her head, but at the end of the sentence, a look of deep hatred flashed in her eyes. She will never forget that man. Even though he failed to achieve anything, he ruined her 18 years of life. But then he laughed again. She and Xian Ringsu were not related by blood, they were just pregnant with her. In this way, her innocence is still there, but she has just been pregnant for 10 months, and has passed the addiction of being a mother. If I had known this was the case, I shouldn't have gone looking for teachers in the first place, otherwise I wouldn't have had a conflict with Xian Zhengji. Bibi Dong regretted. As soon as the words came out, Bibi Dong suddenly realized something and quickly changed her words. But if this hadn't happened, Xue wouldn't have appeared. Everything seems to be doomed. Why are you looking for me? Didn't I tell you that I would fall asleep? Suzanne said with a confused face. Nothing with a somewhat unnatural look on her face. Bibi Dong quickly waved her hand and explained awkwardly. Suzanne. His intuition told him that something was wrong. Suzanne reminded sincerely, although Xue was born to you, she is not your daughter. Nothing happened. It's time for you to let go of your obsessions. Being happy is better than anything else, isn't it? Bibi Dong couldn't help but nodded, feeling that the resentment in her heart disappeared in an instant, and her whole body became relaxed. Seeing this, Suzanne couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He finally came to terms with it. However, I have to hurry up and go there again to implement what I just said. Otherwise, if I delay for a long time, something may happen. Easily point at the door of the bedroom. Xian Ringsu couldn't help but become anxious when she saw Suzanne and Bibi Dong going in for so long, and the thoughts that had been sinking came to her mind again. The two of them can really. Thinking of this, Xian Ringsu's face turned pale. He is hers, and no one can take it away from him, especially since she is a mother. After a while, the bedroom door opened. Seeing Bibi Dong's sweet smile on her lips, Suzanne felt refreshed and well informed. Xian Ringsu's heart suddenly trembled, and she quickly stepped forward and took Suzanne's arm, declaring her sovereignty. Seeing Xian Ringsu's behavior, Bibi Dong raised her eyebrows, and her expression immediately calmed down, as if nothing had happened. Suzanne, why does this weird cold wind make me feel like I'm about to have a palace fight? Husband, I have something to do with you. Come in with me. Pulling Suzanne, Xian Ringsu dove into the bedroom and closed the door, but the person outside the door changed. Xian Ringsu had a small face and said a little unhappy, honestly, what were you doing just now? Suzanne looked calm and replied, as a teacher, I have to explain it clearly to her. Otherwise, how can my mother-in-law understand her thoughts? Then how did you tell her? Be honest and don't miss a word. Xian Ringsu asked forcefully. Hey, why do I feel a little sour? Which vinegar bottle did I knock over? Suzanne teased with a smile on his lips. Are you going to say it or not? Xian Ringsu bared her teeth and put her jade hand on Suzanne's waist, threateningly. Of course, I mean, why don't we change places and tell you slowly? As he said this, Suzanne glanced in the direction of the soft bed and said thoughtfully, bah. It's a beautiful idea, just say it here. Xian Ringsu said angrily. Okay, right here, I will tell you the truth. Chapter 273. Return to Xiandao City. On the bed, Xian Ringsu curled up in Suzanne's arms, holding his waist with her hands, and her long golden hair fell down her back. Her eyes are as soft as water, her smile is charming, and her fairy-like appearance is like an angel's delicate and pretty face, with a faint blush after spring love, and her every move is charming and charming. Xian Ringsu muttered and stared at Suzanne dissatisfied. Then how did I get here? After taking care of this guy, Xian Ringsu was immediately confused when she heard Suzanne say that she was not Xian Zhengji's daughter. She is a seraph martial spirit, how could she not be? Playing with Xian Ringsu's hair with her right hand, Suzanne replied, before I left, I extracted some angel blood from you and made it a baby to replace you. In other words, your current bloodline comes from the bloodline of angels, otherwise you would not have awakened the seraph martial spirit. After all, your father Qiangxin only has 4 wings. Xian Ringsu glared at Suzanne angrily. No wonder my back felt weird that day. I knew it was you who was causing trouble. Don't you have anything to say? After all, your current identity was changed to this by me privately. After giving Xian Ringsu a slight kiss, Suzanne slid her arm down to Xian Ringsu's back, rubbing it slightly with her body trembling slightly. Xian Ringsu glared at Suzanne and feigned anger. Yes, I'm very angry now. I want to take revenge severely and cut you into pieces. Suzanne was also amused when she saw Xian Ringsu speaking the hardest in the softest tone, with a fierce look on her face. Ah. You willing to do this to me? Suzanne said with a smile, leaning forward slightly. Poo. Patting Suzanne's chest angrily, Xian Rongsu backed away with a blushing face, her ferocious look gone, leaving only shyness. You really don't hate me? Rubbing Xian Rongsu's chin, Suzanne smiled slightly, but his eyes were extremely serious, giving Suzanne a charming look. Xian Rongsu said angrily, everyone belongs to a stinky guy like you. What else do you want me to do? Xian Rongsu didn't have much affection for Xian Zhongji. After all, he had never given him fatherly love. Especially after hearing about her mother Bibidong, she felt even more disdainful of Xian Zhongji's actions. Now, knowing that she is not Xian Zhongji's daughter, she does not have any fluctuations in her heart, but she has to hide this from Xian Daoliu. After all, he was pretty good to himself. If he knew the truth, he might collapse. In other words, your heart is not mine yet. With a straight face, Suzanne said seriously, close the quilt and put both hands in it. Oh. It seems that I have to work harder, otherwise you will run away with someone else. Stop making trouble. I surrender. It's all yours. That's it now. Seeing Suzanne becoming lustful again, Xian Rongsu began to push him shyly. She couldn't bear to continue tossing him, so she quickly surrendered and begged for mercy. Sooner or later, I will die on your belly. Seeing Xian Rongsu glaring at him with such charming eyes, Suzanne pinched her nose fiercely, feeling angry. It's really hard for a hot-blooded man like her to be like this. Bah. You can talk nonsense. Xian Rongsu spat in shame and anger, thinking about the two of her. Her face turned slightly hot. Tomorrow, let's go back to Xiandao City. Xian Rongsu's the tone was soft, and after she finished speaking, she dove into the quilt, feeling extremely embarrassed. Okay Su. Xian couldn't help but laugh. His voice was long and drawn out, as if he was deliberately teasing someone. Returning to Xiandao City is naturally not the goal, but the goal requires returning to Xiandao City. If you want to get married, just say it directly, instead of reminding yourself in a roundabout way like this. Disgusting. She pouted and patted Suzanne's chest. Xian Rongsu's pretty face was hot under the quilt, as if it was on fire. Early the next morning. Are you planning to return to Xiandao City? While eating the breakfast made by Suzanne, Bibidong looked calm and gentle, but there was a hint of sadness in her brows. Looking between Suzanne and Xian Rongsu, Bibidong felt sour in her heart, as if something had been taken away. Well, Xue still has the divine test, so she plans to return to Xiandao City as soon as possible. Suzanne nodded and said, oh. Bibidong replied absent-mindedly, and did not continue to ask any more questions, just thinking her own breakfast. Seeing how strange the atmosphere was, Xian Rongsu touched it with her little hand. Hey, what are you doing? Feeling a sharp pain in her soft waist, Suzanne almost jumped up. While rubbing her waist, she glared at Xian Rongsu. As a man, 3 places are the most important. One is the brother, the second is the kidney, the third is the waist. If you keep pinching me like this, sooner or later one day it will be too late for you to regret it. After an extremely embarrassing breakfast, Suzanne brought Xian Rongsu to the Wuhan City high-speed railway station. What's wrong? When he was about to enter the station, he saw Suzanne suddenly stopped. Xian Rongsu pulled Suzanne's hand and asked as a reminder. Seeing Suzanne frowning and looking ahead, Xian Rongsu also looked over immediately. They were 2 women. The mature mother took her daughter's arm and slowly walked towards them. The mother and daughter are slender and look a little unusual in their appearance. They are dressed in black and their faces are covered with a layer of black gauze. Only a waterfall of long blue hair can be seen hanging down their backs. Is there anything wrong with them? Xian Rongsu asked curiously. No, I just found another good idea. Suzanne smiled and shook his head. Xian Rongsu blinked. Is that the girl you're talking about? Of course it's that girl. Do you still think I said that woman is bad? Suzanne said with a speechless smile. Seeing Suzanne and Xian Rongsu looking at her, the woman also frowned, holding her daughter's hand and speeding up her pace. Madam, are you going to the Stardao Empire Royal Academy? Suzanne waved. Hearing this, the woman stopped immediately and looked over. You know me. The voice was like a clear spring in late autumn. Although the voice was soft, it carried a chill that made people afraid to approach. The girl also raised her eyes slightly and looked over. When she saw the two staring at her, her heart trembled suddenly, and she quickly lowered her head. That timid and weak look, as if he would fall if the wind blew. Suzanne smiled and said, "The two of us happen to be going back to Xian City. If madam doesn't mind, we might as well go together. We can go to the VIP workshop together. It will be more convenient for you two." VIP workshop? Hearing this, the woman's pupils shrank suddenly, and she looked at Suzanne in surprise. There is only one VIP workshop for each car, and it is a whole car. The only ticket is not sold to the public. Even nobles such as Els can only ride in high V seats, not to mention that this is Wuhan City, and nobles are not easy to use here. Chapter 274 VIP Workshop. In Wuhan City, it is rumored that one needs to be at least a ruby cardinal of the first level, temple bishop, to enjoy the treatment of the VIP workshop. Even they have to pay a high amount of gold coins. Of course, free treatment is provided to the powerful titled Douluo. This is the rule of Xiao City High-Speed Railway Company. Judging from their rages, they are not the bishops of Wuhan Palace. Don't you know your little brother's surname? Xian asked. Xue Qinghe. Suzanne smiled lightly and replied boom. As soon as these words came out, Xian and Li Lingling were stunned and looked at Suzanne in disbelief. No King, His Highness the Xiandao Empire, the Lord of Xiao City. Turns out, it's him. It can be said that no one in the mainland does not know the name Xue Qinghe. Most of the items that everyone comes into contact with on a daily basis are produced in Xiao City. Xiao City Metro Company, Xiao City Catering, Xiao City Shopping Mall, Xiao City Mobile Phone, Xiao City Computer. In particular, the emergence of Xiao City's banking business allowed Xiao banknotes to completely replace gold coins. And bank cards replaced gold cards nowadays. When everyone needs money, they can just take out their mobile phones and scan it without having to go through as much trouble as before. And all of this is because of the person in front of me. He is a true son of the times. I didn't expect to meet you, Your Highness. This is truly the fate of my mother and daughter. Yan excitedly pulled Li Lingling to salute. If it were anyone else, she might still be suspicious. But now, absolutely no one would dare to impersonate the man in front of him. Once you really dare to do this, you will be sanctioned by Xiao City, such as being wanted on the internet, blocking network services, and freezing your bank card. In an instant, you will lose everything you originally owned. In fact, even if you hide in a small town and go out to buy a cabbage with banknotes, you will face the risk of not being able to buy it. Because everyone likes online payment, with the mobile phone business being outsourced. The current price of a mobile phone has fallen to 1000 Xiao banknotes. Yuan. One gold coin can be exchanged for 10,000 Xiao coins, which is equivalent to 1 yuan and 1 copper coin. There is a bug in the original work of Douluo. The 3 coins of gold, silver and copper should be 1:100 instead of 110. Right square bracket 1,000 Xiao coin still seems to be a lot for an ordinary family. After all, this is 10 silver coins. But it was already 2 years ago that the gold coins were exchanged for Xiao banknotes. Today's Xiao banknotes are worthless long ago. Even an ordinary family has a savings of nearly 10,000 yuan. Mobile phones have become a standard accessory for everyone unexpectedly. The other party turned out to be Xue Qinghe, and Li Lingling was also extremely surprised. Her aqua blue eyes looked at him quietly, with a strange color in her dead eyes. The other party is a man of the hour in mainland China. His power and wealth were unparalleled, and more importantly, he changed the way of life on the entire continent. In the eyes of everyone, he shines like a god. Haha. Madam, you're welcome. If you can trust me, then go and sit in the VIP workshop. Anyway, we and I will be fine. Suzanne said with a smile. It takes about 4 hours to get from Wuhan Palace to Xiandao City. It would be nice to have 2 more people to chat with on the way. Moreover, Li Lingling's martial arts spirit is definitely the most suitable candidate to inherit the 9 colors goddess. Note, the 9-colored goddess is partial to healing. The original work, Ningrangrong, was blessed with an Oscar. Such talents must naturally be brought to the Royal Academy. In that case, Please don't bother your highness seeing Suzanne's invitation. Xian pondered slightly and finally agreed. The two of them, mother and daughter, would inevitably have some inconvenience as people come and go in the ordinary seats, so the VIP workshop is naturally much better. Moreover, Suzanne and the two are not bad people. They seem to be a very kind couple. Ling Ling, a child who rarely talks coldly, worries her the most. It would be good to make more friends when she studies at the Royal Academy in the future. If she was friends with Suzanne, no one would dare to do anything to her. Seeing Xian agreed, Suzanne smiled and nodded, and then led the two of them to the rear compartment. Seeing Suzanne and the other four approaching, the flight attendant Xiao was slightly stunned, and then her eyes were fixed on Suzanne, as if she felt very familiar. But for a moment, she couldn't remember where she had seen it. We are passengers in the VIP workshop. With that said, Suzanne took out a diamond encrusted card from the storage ring. Diamond card. Xiao was immediately shocked and stared at the card in Suzanne's hand in disbelief. She is actually lucky enough to be able to see such cards. The headquarters of Xiao City has 4 high-level VIP cards: Purple Gold card, Sapphire card, Ruby card, and Diamond card, which are given to different people respectively. Card holders enjoy different treatments according to their levels. Just like this VIP workshop, you need at least Sapphire level to enjoy it, and you can only get it at half price once a year, and you need to pay in full for the rest. She remembered that this Diamond card seemed to only be available to senior executives of Xiao City headquarters. Aha! Suddenly, Xiao seemed to have discovered something, and her face suddenly turned pale. City Lord, Staring at Suzanne, Xiao opened her mouth to explain and apologize, but found that she was too nervous to say anything, and was so anxious that she almost cried. Her weak face was full of grievance and helplessness, and her eyes were red. Now everyone is envious of Xiao City's employee benefits. The job of being a flight attendant in the VIP workshop of Xiao City High-Speed Railway Company was given to her after working as a general passenger for a year. 1 week, on her first day at work, she forgot about her big boss. If word of this spread, she would have no way of surviving in the future. Before coming, she had memorized the VIP list, but unexpectedly she forgot the most important one. This person is not on the list by default. Wuwash is too difficult. Wuhancheng High-Speed Railway Branch is affiliated with Xiao City High-Speed Railway Headquarters, and Xiao City High-Speed Railway Headquarters is affiliated with Xiao Group's Transportation Department. She accidentally stabbed her to the sky. Why? Are you crying? Although I'm charming and charm thousands of girls, you don't need to be so excited, right? Suzanne's mouth twitched slightly, and he said speechlessly. He has seen people knocked unconscious by his own red envelopes, and some people cried because of his handsome appearance. But what do you mean by crying? If you didn't know, you thought I had unspoken rules for you. The above is purely the protagonist's own yai. No funds, no plot yet. Ahem. Yi. Yan and Yi Ling also choked at Suzanne's words. They didn't expect that he also had such a funny side. Okay, he doesn't mean to blame you, just take us in and see what the VIP workshop is like. Qian Ringsu smiled knowingly, already knowing what Xiao was afraid of. She waved her hand nonchalantly and said. As soon as these words came out, Xiao immediately looked at Suzanne, her eyes full of hope. 3 days of salary deduction is a warning. Suzanne understood immediately and said with a dull and serious expression, Xiao was overjoyed and nodded hurriedly, with a smile on her face. Chapter 275 Zuyi, a traitor to the people. 3 days salary is basically insignificant compared to Xiao Group's employee benefits. After all, the welfare of Xiao Group was provided by Suzanne in accordance with the high standards of future generations. The purpose was to improve the cohesion of the group and reduce exploitation by capitalists. Especially since he is now the biggest capitalist, he should set an example. Anyway, Xiao City united the interests of several forces and issued the money under his supervision. In other words, money is just like toilet paper for him, so he naturally wants to improve employee benefits. But Xiao's mistake must be faced squarely. It's him who's coming now, but maybe someone else will be riding in the future. Others will not be as kind as him. Even though they will not kill people, they are still very likely to be mean and difficult. Xiao City can provide shelter for employees, but it cannot protect her from wind and rain. There are some things that can be avoided, so as not to make it difficult for her in the future. Suzanne also wanted to remind her that he didn't care about those 3 days salary. Under Xiaorao's enthusiastic guidance, Suzanne and the two entered the VIP workshop. The VIP workshop is naturally not comparable to ordinary workshops, but it is quite complete inside. 3 dining tables, 8 spacious bedrooms, bathtubs, you name it. There are even massage beds and a movie room. It's really complete. The group of people came to the sofa in the middle of the carriage and sat down. City Lord, do you need something? Xiaorao was respectful and looked at Suzanne with deep admiration. Seeing Xiaorao's admiring look, Suzanne had no doubt that if she played with the unspoken rules, the other party would definitely obey her. This sultry and beautiful face, this delicate body wrapped in uniform, this sexy and tall figure, these elegant and straight proud curves, this slim waist that can be grasped. Seriously, exciting. Well, this is the evil capitalist. Unfortunately, he is an honest man and has no idea what the unspoken rules are. If you want to eat or drink anything, just order something. The chefs here will make it specially. Suzanne looked at Xian and the two. I want a sour plum soup. After saying that, Qian Mingsu also looked at Xian and the two with gentle eyes, asking them to be more casual. I want a cone, can I? After taking courage, Yi Lingling stared at Suzanne and said. Suzanne smiled knowingly and said, you can eat whatever you want, but eating too many cones can cause diarrhea, so you have to be careful. Yeah. Yi Lingling nodded shyly. Yi Lingling asked for a cone, which the little girl probably liked, while Yi Yanan asked for a bowl of lotus seed soup, which was also suitable for her. City Lord, where are you? Xiaorao focused her eyes on Suzanne again. I'll just be casual. Let's have a bowl of Buddha jumping over the wall. Suzanne waved his hand and said, we. Hearing this, Qian Mingsu laughed immediately. This was not casual, it was simply making things difficult for others. Buddha jumps over the wall. What is this thing? Seeing Qian Ren's playful expression, Yi Yanan and Yi Lingling were stunned. They had no idea what was going on. They had obviously never heard of this famous dish. Otherwise, the two of them would also be able to feel the charm of Suzanne's words. Xiaorao was also confused by these words, and her eyes were stunned. This can be called casual, but you are really not a human being if you are casual. Xiaorao suddenly looked embarrassed. City Lord, if we make it now, given the time. Suzanne waved his hand. 2 or 3 hours is enough. The chef should have graduated from Xiao City. If he can't do it, don't blame me for bringing his teacher over and teaching him personally. Why? Is it so difficult for a chef to be a chef? No, he just wanted to see the level of Xiao City's chefs now so as not to embarrass New Oriental. He couldn't afford to take the blame. Xiaorao didn't dare to say any more, nodded respectfully, and quickly went down to get ready. 2 or 3 hours, one dish. Yi Yanan and the other two twitched the corners of their mouths, and they finally understood why Qian Mingsu was smiling. This is really a casual comment. You two should be more casual, don't be so restrained. I'm not a good person. Seeing the two people sitting upright with their shoulders motionless, Suzanne couldn't help but shook his head and reminded them. I'm not a serious bad guy. Just treat it as your own family. Suzanne's mouth became slippery again, and Suzanne quickly changed his words. The two nodded, and although their expressions softened a little, they still looked a little unnatural. Especially Yi Lingling, who was holding her phone and lowering her head, as if meeting a stranger for the first time, and was extremely shy. Fortunately for Yi Yanan, she is a mother after all, so she can be more open-minded. With her Soul Emperor cultivation, she has also come into contact with some big shots. Seeing this, Suzanne didn't bother to chat with the two of them anymore. He lay on the sofa nearby and played with his phone. That uninhibited and lazy look didn't seem to have the slightest aristocratic air, and Yi Yanan and the other two were stunned. You brat, you dare to play games, even though you're a slinger. Auntie said you'd be back soon, right? Just After logging into the game, Xue Qinghe immediately sent a text message, and Suzanne was also shocked. Sister, you are so startled that I will easily get a heart attack. Suzanne opened questions with a sigh and replied angrily, who? Believe you? I've been living happily outside for 2 years, and you finally know you're back. Xue Qinghe said, I plan to get married to Xue when I come back, cultivate myself, build a family, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. You have to make progress in life, don't you think so? Knowing that Xue Qinghe was very resentful, Suzanne was a little embarrassed to leave the matter to her and replied weakly. As soon as the message was sent, the other side suddenly became quiet. Suzanne sent 2 more question marks, but still no one responded. Royal family group, breaking news, great news. At Emperor Xue Yao and Queen our Grandpa Xuan, Xue Qinghe quickly liked all the members. Even though she was not in charge, she couldn't resist her enthusiasm at the moment. This was definitely a great event. That brat still knows how to cultivate oneself, manage one's family, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. Ask him for me, when will he progress to the 3rd point? Xue had known for a long time that Suzanne was back. When she saw that famous sentence, she immediately became angry and shouted back. Cultivate oneself, manage one's family, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. Just pay special attention to the 2nd point. You're a huge improvement. Xue Qinghe, isn't he in the group? Why do you want me to ask? Now that the emperor has spoken out, your majesty, you should also tell the truth. Elders should pay more attention recently. After all, it is a happy event for the royal family. Nangangling also expressed her position. We'll talk about this later. Father, I'll arrange a red envelope first, and I'll tell you right away. General Manager of Network Operations Department, Xue Mingtang. I agree to. General Manager of Xiao Group, Xue Qinghe. If there is a red envelope, you must agree. Honorary General Manager of Xian Shantao Bao, Xue Wuji. Emperor Xue, tricky people! Exclamation mark. Treason! Exclamation mark. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.